constituents, come and talk to us.
Right.
Get through something, right, even if you can't get through everything.
It would be good to have a couple guidelines. There don't even have to be rules here, but just some guidelines. If you're gonna ask for multiple continuances, that, to your point, either A, you show up and explain why, or B, some type of explanation as to, again, why you're asking for such continuance, because it makes the scheduling all that much more difficult when this happens
Right.
continually. And there's no, from their point of view, there's no downside.
Right.
So
And I don't, we always want to be sort of cordial and easy to work with, but at some point.
I think
you
you've
know,
been overly cordial.
I know, at some point. And we never see them, right? So it's all, it all happens offline. So that's, I think that's, if they request another continuance for the June 10th meeting, make sure that it's our recommendation that they either keep the appointment and update us as much as possible, or they withdraw and resubmit when they're ready. And that the request for continuance won't necessarily be favorably received by the planning board.
So would you like that response to be in response to a request for continuation of the June 10th hearing to the
Yes.
June 24th hearing?
Yes, yeah, if they request another continuance offline without coming, does that sound right to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, that's to me as well. Okay, so we do not have another hearing until 7:30, but we do have, we have minutes we can do. So I'll entertain a motion on approving the minutes from the 4/8/19 meeting.
I have a couple of comments.
Can we move them and then,
Sure.
okay,
So moved.
second?
Second.
Okay. Comments?
Okay, needless to say, I paid very close attention to what I said. On page 5, in the first paragraph, maybe I said what it says that I said, but what I intended to say was that we're not talking about a special permit for one particular property, but an entire zone. And it's just flip-flopped. Page 5.
You want to just give it to me later on?
I'm sorry?
You want to just give it to me later on?
Sure, if nobody has a problem with what I'm saying.
I do not.
And my other comment is on page 2, also a comment from me. When we were talking about screening for solar farms, I believe I said it should be, that the review of that is subjective, not objective. And maybe the word should be objective, but the process is subjective, is what I did say, I think. So I'll get with you later and show you exactly where.
Just point out where they, where.
Anybody else have any changes to suggest? All right, so, is everybody okay with those changes as presented? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, I took, great pleasure in sharing Mr. Clarkey's creed.
It's actually very good wisdom from 20 years ago.
I know.
And having heard it before, I think it's a subject that's better brought up at your next meeting.
So,
Yeah, at the beginning.
no, I agree.
Okay.
I agree, but I wanted to suggest that we tuck it into the folder and the discussion for the Growth Study Committee that Carol's probably going to chair for us.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, and that meeting is what day and time? It is, there's a special
29th.
meeting. It's May 29th at 8 PM. We're going to meet here to talk about the growth study effort, structuring it, structuring the committee, whatever the committee is, the approach, whatever the approach is. The stakeholders, I would recommend people think about what stakeholders we want to make sure we include. What are people's burning questions? I think we all know many of them, but if there are more burning questions, definitely bring them. And just sort of getting some sort of handle, potentially a proposed timeline, that kind of thing for a growth study effort.
Just one
Yes.
question, just a
Yes.
procedural question. So that meeting is May 29th, that's after the election,
Mhm.
but it's before the June 10th meeting when we reorganize. And I'm wondering if we should reorganize on May 29th.
Typically, we reorganize the very first meeting. It's a good thing to bring up. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically. We probably should do that.
So one thing is, I will not be there on the 29th. I don't know if that puts a
It's okay.
issue.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Will we have other staff support?
I'm sorry?
Will we have other staff support on the 29th?
I don't know if you would be able to be there.
I'm not
Elaine is
sure.
out this week, so I
Yeah.
can't ask her
Okay.
right now.
Yeah. So somebody will have to either commit to doing minutes for us or doing them off are we going to be recorded on the 29th? Is that on the schedule? To be recorded on May 29th, our meeting? Yes. Okay. Good. That'd be important. All right, so you won't be here. It is typical to reorganize the very first meeting, so I think we should do that. I think that's a good point. Yep. Are you ready? I have a great idea for you, Gary, actually. I have all these plans. I'm feeling so nostalgic. Okay, so our very next meeting is Wednesday at 6:30 at TJ's, when we will be thanking Carol and Fran for their service to the planning board. And we mean that sincerely. This planning board has been a better board because of Fran and Carol's participation. Very sorry to see them go, and hope that, I know Carol's going to stick around on Zach, and I feel like there's a spot for both of them on future work, either the
Absolutely.
Zach or certainly the growth study thing. So I hope that you both consider that, because you
Thank you.
have a very good voice on this board and the experience that study effort is going to need, so.
It's gonna be big.
I just wanted to confirm we're not going to be televised on Wednesday.
I don't believe we'll be televised on Wednesday, and I don't believe we're gonna talk about any relevant business on
Nothing.
Wednesday. But people are welcome to come and
Members of the
observe.
public.
It is a posted meeting. And Kobe and John, you're very welcome to join us. I know that it's been a pretty meeting-heavy couple of weeks, but all the better. I also wanted to remind people that I am going to go out to Legacy Farms North at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and it's posted in case anybody else wants to come. It's not a public hearing. It's just to go out and scope out the situation that they are experiencing and expect to experience for the next couple of years.
I'd have loved to come, but I can't.
Well, I think that we'll be talking about it again, and we'll go out. I think it was a good suggestion. I think it was Gary that had it, to go out and see it at
School time.
Yes.
school bus time, and I may just do that on my own. But this isn't something that's going to be resolved really quickly, and it would be, I just want to make sure that somebody is going out to just meet with them, talk with them, find out what they're experiencing, and then see if there's a way that we can be meaningful in the process to find a solution with those folks. What is the address? Do you remember the address?
Yeah, I have it in my calendar.
Oh.
16 Redwood Path. 16
Redwood Path is where we're meeting at 9 o'clock on Saturday, if anybody is interested in being there. The other thing that I wanted to ask, if everybody is amenable, and of course it could change as soon as we have a new board, but my idea was to keep at the items to be considered at any time, some of the items that are always important, ZAC updates, well, liaison updates from planning board members of any sort. Master plan updates should be there, the 495 exchange, and also I would think the growth study work, however that shapes up, should be at the bottom there so that we can update the public or ask questions anytime and have it not be a surprise. So if we can do that, that would be really helpful. So does anybody have future agenda items to recommend?
Master plan implementation status.
Yeah, yep. we could probably put that on the agenda for the 10th. At, let's see, 8:30 was 495. How long should we have for that?
I'm not sure how long we have, but I mean,
Well, how long do you think we,
half hour.
okay, so,
We usually have it penciled in for half an hour.
and so then maybe 9 o'clock, master plan updates? And definitely put the growth study topic at the bottom there, because it'll just be getting started, and we'll want to be able to at least update people on that. I wanted to also, we don't, let's see, we don't have it on here, but to find out if we have planning board liaisons up there, it would be a good time at the beginning of the new planning board session if Zach could tell us what is in the works, and we could do a little brainstorming on what we might add to the churn.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great idea.
Okay.
And then one other thing, the sort of update on what's going on with the climate change impact work, as far as, yeah, what we can do about that, and maybe having a liaison from the planning board do that as well.
Okay.
Work with John.
Yeah. Some of these efforts, like the master plan and the growth study efforts, just throwing it out there for consideration as we talk about it, to be thinking in terms, if you have a particular interest or investment, I think that they should have a person who is really owning it from the planning board perspective, as far as interfacing and working the particular challenge, whatever it is. All right.
Well, that could be what we do on Thursday, as far as the reorg, maybe.
So it could be. We did just set so it's up to the planning board what they want to do, right? We did sort of establish that it would be about an hour. And I don't know how people feel about just grinding in on the specifics of the growth study effort.
But as far as just picking people who could be the,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could, we could definitely. And that would be part of I envision it being part of the structuring discussion, right? Yeah.
Can we do the Hayden Woods or?
I don't know if we can do that.
Time.
The Haydenwood Davenport discussion.
So, just as background of Hayden Woods, they're looking to have the remaining $25,000 bond released. We got a memo from, and Phil, maybe you can talk to us a little bit more. We got a memo from Matt Crowley at Beta, who has confirmed that everything has been met that the planning board was looking for in the last memo. The only issue is he did call out that we haven't gotten any photographs showing that the fence around the retention basin was installed and the vegetation in that area has come back. So I spoke to Joe Marquidant today, and he was reaching out to the applicant to see if they can get the photographs. They're going to try and bring them to the hearing tonight. I don't know. Oh, do you have them? I do have them. Perfect. Okay.
Come on
So I
up.
think that's the only thing that's
There we go.
missing.
I wasn't sure.
They're satisfactory to the board. We have the memo from Beta and these photographs, and that should be
No, that's okay.
No, I think they're all the same. It's just,
Maybe just take a look at them and pass them down. I should go do something like that.
different views of it. Yeah.
That's a full retention.
It is a full pond. I assume the fencing goes all the way around.
Yeah, the fencing goes all the way around.
Does, yes.
Bill, did you see the pictures?
I did not.
There's some pictures up there, this is some of it, sorry. I can get you a copy as well. John has the whole bunch
The
of
whole
this.
packet is coming around.
But you also, John, you received them by email as well, right?
I did not, this is
Okay.
the first one.
Still need to scan them, I guess.
That's more Phil, so you can, so just, give me Phil so you can see.
Kind of more of the same, but I think maybe some different shots, yeah, different angles.
Seed?
Yeah, seeded, hybrid seeded, yes. I mean, unfortunately, the weather has not been. Yeah, right now it is, you know. Tonight it's gonna be. Thank you.
Any issues that you can,
I mean, I'd like to see a little more grass growth, but, you know, other than that.
any questions from board members?
Just back to Phil's comment, so does that satisfy you or no? Because I'm gonna base my vote on what you say. No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
Well, I think grass will grow, but I'm just curious as to when it was hydro seeded, because we've had plenty of rain. It's not like a drought issue.
That's true.
So can the applicant tell us when that was hydroseeded?
It was hydroseeded in the fall, when the work was done, and it was seeded again, I think, mid-April. We're happy to reseed it again, and that's, or hydroseed
When were the
again.
photos taken?
Today.
Today?
I think the real issue for us is the weather has not been really warm, especially during the evenings. That's been an issue, according to our landscaper.
Any other questions or concerns?
And everything else has been satisfied, and all the
We
requirements and
have a
requests.
memo from Beta saying everything else that was in the previous memo has been addressed.
All good? Getting head nods.
So I guess I don't have any problem with entertaining a motion to release the rest of the bond as long as you are willing to reseed if it is necessary.
Absolutely.
So that's fine.
We have an excellent relationship with the current management and condo owners association, so we're happy to
Okay.
work with that.
So I don't know if, John, if it's possible to just sort of put it on your agenda to check it in a month when the weather hopefully turns to warmer
Sunshine.
climes, and just make sure that it looks like it's coming in.
I'm happy to do that. The question is, when would you seed? Because is a month enough to let enough grass come up for it to be noticeable?
I would think so, and maybe that's a question for, do you think that a month is enough? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
And then he'll just communicate if it, with you if there's some reason that we
Not
need
an
to
issue.
reseed.
Not an issue.
Just a point of clarification, maybe for Kobe, and I might have missed it, but just name and address for
Oh, sure,
the
I'm
record.
sorry. John Parsons with Davenport Village.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to release that bond.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So you should be all set.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, yep.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Did the pictures stay?
Say it again?
Do you have the pictures? Just checking.
Any other future agenda items in the next 2 minutes?
Well, regarding the master plan implementation item,
Yeah.
should we start with some of the items were to-dos by other committees, like conservation or selectmen?
Yeah.
Should we ask the town planner to send an email to those committees to see if they, to give us an update on what they've done?
Yeah.
This
it's a
page was our page.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty extensive list, isn't it?
So you think we should look through it first?
I think we should, I'm just feeling like we should look through it first and then do some of that work to sort of parcel it out and see. But yes, I definitely think that other boards and committees need to be reached out to find out.
So, Muriel,
Yeah.
I was thinking that for the downtown project,
Yeah, the quarter?
yeah, not to bring those guys in, but just for us to have a small discussion about that, about the strategy of that.
I don't mind putting it on the agenda. I'm not sure what role we have.
Can we make suggestions to them, or?
So I think they're at 75% design. I know they're gonna come present to Historic District Commission again.
Yeah.
I know that they're at 75%, so I don't know if maybe they might present to us also.
Yeah, that's, you know, if there's a place where we can take our thoughts, then I'm fine, totally.
Aren't they gonna have one more public hearing, or are they done? Do you know?
But there's a project portal on the website. Why don't I check?
Oh, look at her go.
Thank you,
That'd be
Amy.
great. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And-
Okay,
And
yeah.
maybe like the 10th is a good time to do it, because
Yeah.
we're kicking off the next year.
Close to 7:30.
I'm gonna entertain a motion while Amy's looking for that to open the public hearing for the Whisper Way. It's an amendment to the special permit concept plan, and it's also a continued public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan for Whisper Way.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
On the, not so sure about the, if it works, vote-wise.
Folks at home cannot hear you. They'll be desperately curious about what's going on.
Huh?
Hi, Ron Nation, proponent of Whisper Way. I'm not sure if it works to open the definitive hearing. I don't think it's open yet. So the subdivision is a continuation, so that.
It is, okay.
The special permit is a new hearing.
Oh, okay, I got it backwards.
Okay. So I open both, right, and just give us 2 minutes, you can get set up and whatever.
I'll be right back.
Did you find out?
I don't see any other upcoming dates besides the groundbreaking, so
Wow.
When's the groundbreaking?
May 1st, 2020.
May 1st, 2020. There's a lot of easement work between now and May 1st,
Yes, it
2020,
is.
I'm just saying.
But people can subscribe to email updates apparently, so.
Nice. So I'm fine having a conversation about it. And,
Let me take a look at the website first. but-
Perfect. We should just put it on the agenda in case,
Okay, that's cool.
okay? So then we don't waste that time. All right.
I'll just email the link to everyone.
So maybe at that point, we can figure out if we want them to come in or not.
I don't think we're gonna have anybody in.
Okay.
Right? Not at all. Let's have a conversation about it
Okay,
first.
sounds good.
Okay. All right. So, welcome. Yes.
Sorry, just going back to that,
Yeah.
if there's anything appropriate to include in the packet, I think that'll just help encourage all of us to review what's in the existing plans beforehand, or maybe we just all agree to do it, but I think we'd all be better served. I mean, that's a big deal for the town, and
Yeah, it's a huge.
it's worth all of us as planning board members to review the content information before we have the discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll look to John for that. Whatever you can get your hands on. Thank you.
Okay, all righty. Do you want to introduce, the amendment, special permit to the special permit concept?
Sure. Ron Nation and Dan Hazen from Gary and Howlon. And so last time we were here, I think it was, well, can we get this on the, do we want to get it on the screen?
Yeah, I would love to get it on the screen.
Is that the open space plan rendering?
Yes.
The lovely Carol Merrill. See, I'm dating myself, dating,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we emailed it, so. Good.
So, when we first brought this in, we had all the changes we made since we first brought it in are pretty minor. The layout's basically generally the same. We just scienced it out. We ended up with, I think, an additional common drive from the last plan. We carved out enough land for possible septic systems to be in one spot on the bottom of the plan there, the bright area. We're not sure if we're going to need them or not. We may need it just for a few systems. We have all the open space complies with the rules and regs. Long driveways were brought up at the last hearing. We have 2 driveways that are in the 600-foot range. And the fire chief, we went over that with the fire chief. Fire chief suggests that we put sprinklers in those houses, and I've agreed to that. And they also have a turnaround, a widening section. It's about halfway down, you can barely see it on that long driveway.
Yeah.
But it just, that's in the bylaw.
A turnaround?
It's a widening, so vehicles can pass. If it's over 500 feet, they want that.
I'm sorry. How wide are the driveways?
There'll be a minimum of 12 feet paved, and there'll be 2 feet, a 2-foot shoulder, a flat shoulder, either side of the driveway. The fire chief was only concerned with those 2 driveways, and he thinks that the concern is hugely diminished by putting sprinkler systems in the houses.
We have a memo to that effect as well.
Yeah. So it would just be those 2 houses at the, or any of the houses on the long driveways? So there's like 3 houses at the end of long driveways, right?
Yeah, all the others are under 500 feet. I think that one, I guess it's lot 2. I can't point up there.
Okay. So there's a common drive that serves lot 3 and 4,
Yeah.
and then there's a common drive, the longest one, that serves lot 1 and 5. Those are the ones
Right.
really
Right.
far away.
Yep.
And a common drive that serves lot 6 and 7.
Okay, and the
Right.
2 houses that are gonna be sprinkled are 1 and 5?
Yes.
How long is the next longest driveway?
Down to lot 3, yeah.
300 feet?
About just over 400 feet for 3 and 4 for these 2. And the rest are, this one here is 200 to here. And the rest are, pretty typical.
Lot 9 is an existing house.
Yes.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yeah.
And I just see an outline of what I believe is the existing driveway, right?
Yes.
It's just, so what is the new driveway? I don't see it. It's under the trees?
It is kind of under the trees, but it is there.
Oh, okay.
Dan is showing it.
Right. We're gonna pull it right off of, right around Station 800,
Okay.
or possibly move it up depending on the grades right here.
And then that would be also a common drive for lot 10 and 9?
Yes.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 common drives.
Where is that in our,
It's a separate attachment that came today.
Yeah, it's a.
this came today?
This particular
The green
picture.
version, the
The
cover
green
version.
version. All right, so it's not in our,
So, through you, Madam Chair,
yes.
how will the, work with the sharing of driveways as far as who's responsible for maintaining them?
Well, we'll have language in the deeds, and they'll certainly be sold with the intention, with the understanding that they're common drives and that it's a shared expense between the two homeowners.
Makes sense, but I just wanted to ask the question.
Yep.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Gary.
Two questions. The first one's actually for John. And I know that our bylaws have limits on the length of a cul-de-sac or dead-end street. I know we have limits on the number of houses. And then I also know that we generally not crazy about shared driveways, but, we do permit them, I think, when it's a maximum of 2 houses. Is that correct?
Yes.
But I guess I'm curious, do we have any constraints on the number of shared driveways we can have off of a dead-end street or cul-de-sac?
Not,
Really restricted by the number of houses off of them.
right.
Okay, total number of houses.
Not the, you can have 2 houses per common driveway,
Yes.
but not, there's no limit on the number of common driveways that you could have
Off of a street.
off of one street.
In the open space development.
Correct.
District.
There is a limit on the number of houses we can have off of a cul-de-sac, which this is,
Yes.
Correct.
which is
10.
10. And there's 9,
10.
there's 10 here.
10. One, well, there's 2 existing, but yeah, 10. 10 total.
Okay, so the number of driveways doesn't matter, it's just the total number of houses.
Correct.
Okay. And then second question, with the long driveways, I'm just curious what you're doing to allow for people to turn around in those driveways? And this is just from my personal experience of knowing people with long driveways, is that
Well,
they have
yeah.
people over, they pull in, and then everybody backs up, and
Right, no.
sometimes there's not
Well,
enough room to turn around.
Yeah, I know, I think there'd be line of sight, but, for the long driveways, but in the bylaw, they want to turn around, I forget its dimensions, but the driveway widens out, for a distance, I think it's 24 feet or 30 feet, something like that, and it gets wide enough for 2 cars to pass. And any driveway over 500 feet has to have that, so we've got that in this driveway here.
Yeah,
And it's just a little turnout, no different than going down some of the narrow roads in town that.
yeah, no,
Counter
I guess,
truck or whatever.
I guess I'm referring more to the driveway at the garage, so that there's sufficient room, even if there's cars parked there, that there's some ability to turn around, because,
Actually, the fire department has, in the bylaw, there's a requirement for a turnaround down at the end of the driveway for a fire truck. So we have to make that work as well.
Okay.
And there's a slope requirement as well that we have to make work. And I'm not sure in what process that all gets flushed out, but, I mean, we're just gonna make it work. And we can make it work.
That was going to be my
Yeah, go ahead.
question, Madam Chair. On those long driveways, is there significant slope change, either up or down? Because the topography of the land lends itself to a lot of changes in slopes. So I was just curious in terms of, are we going up, are we going down, are we going?
Yeah, there are definitely some decent grade changes, but we have a 10% slope to work with, so,
So we within 10%, less than or equal to 10%.
yeah, there will be some driveways with the maximum slope for up here, for a section of it, but,
Groups within.
we'll be within the regulations.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm gonna just make sure we start at the beginning and just ask the principal planner to give any overview or additional comments. You gave a very detailed memo, which I appreciate.
So this is a two-part hearing, a special permit and a subdivision plan. The subdivision plan should really come after the special permit because the special permit allows for the subdivision plan to happen. So in terms of process, that's how it should go. Special permit first, subdivision plan next. They had originally been approved for a 24-lot subdivision. The subdivision itself was not a cul-de-sac. It was a loop road that had 2 access points to Wood Street. So one of the big changes is now it's a cul-de-sac, obviously. 10 lots, 7 houses, I should say, are new. 3 houses are being raised and redeveloped, I believe, or just redeveloped in general. So 10 total lots, 7 net new lots. And I believe, aside from all the details, that's kind of the big picture change in the development.
Okay, and is everybody eligible to vote? This is a brand new hearing, so everybody's eligible to vote who's here right
Everyone's
now.
eligible to vote on the special permit.
Right.
Everyone but Frank Duraso is allowed to vote on the subdivision plan.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll go to Beta's review.
So, this, as was mentioned, this is a 2-step process, and now with the common driver, it's really a 3-step process for the board to consider. So, the first thing is to make sure that as you know, when we did the first one, was to make sure that there was the number of lots, to determine what was the number of lots. And there's a clear, some guidance provided in your bylaw. And the first thing is you do a conventional subdivision. You know, you draw it, make sure it has all the right frontage, all the lots are the right size for that zoning area and whatnot. So so that was done for the first. And if you recall, that it had a loop road that ended up. So there was a number of complications because of the vernal pool and construction cost issues and whatever. So they've come back with this new subdivision plan. The challenge that I have with what was, they just assumed that the 22 lots were still in play. And yet the lot area doesn't cover the same area. So they're using a smaller area, they're taking off a chunk to the, what is that, the east?
Yeah, east.
The east. And if you look at the new subdivision road, this whole left side is not included in the open space plan. So you can't really compare those two. But the road goes out of, it would essentially go out of the subdivision and then to, Dan and I have had some discussions about, is this still viable considering, you know, the vernal pool issue and whether it's constructible or not, and therefore can you actually get that many lots? And so Dan mentioned that the construction cost was the issue relative to permitting, and we weren't able to verify that, but anyway, I think that's where you got to start, is figure out, is this, now, the second guidance is an equation in which they provided the equation relative to the new lot, and that provides for, I don't know, like 20 lots?
I think so.
19 lots. So, and clearly, obviously, an open space subdivision is more advantageous than, you know, a full subdivision. So, but I think starting at that place and making sure that we get all our ducks in a row here first. And then, you know, we went on and did some review of the subdivision itself, And there are, now we're working through most of the comments. We got a submission today. We weren't able to get through everything. But there are a number of things that just will have to be worked out.
Right.
And then finally, just the design and the layout of the common driveways themselves will have to be. There's a number of issues associated with those, so.
There'll be a whole section of permitting that, once we have the lots laid out, then we will go through and we'll
Right.
finalize the common driveways. Just at this stage in the game, it just didn't make sense to finalize those without knowing if we can move forward.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair, just a question on clarity.
Sure.
So what was the acreage before versus the acreage now? You're saying they removed a bunch of acreage
What's
between
new
the two
one?
plans?
Like 34 now?
I
It
think
used to be up in the
34, it used to be about almost
45.
50.
Almost
So they've gone from about 45 to mid-30s?
31.2.
So clearly, there's a plan to subdivide the parcel that they're not including in this, I would assume, right? So,
And I'm just trying to follow the math, and it used to be 22 lots, and now it's 10? Is that, because that seems like the ratio has cut down proportionally. I'm just trying to understand what you were saying, you know.
well,
about
the issue is if you can't do two connections to the street, then you're limited to a 500-foot dead-end street for your subdivision, which,
I think it's 1,000 though with the open space, right?
for open space,
Yeah.
but not the subdivision.
Right.
So you gotta do a conventional subdivision that requires no waivers or whatever.
Right,
So-
right, good point.
That's the now, obviously, this is a better plan than the 22 lots or the, whatever, so, but I think that's, and John pointed out correctly that it's a guidance, the conventional plan is a guidance, not necessarily, held fast.
Yeah, but it is conventionally a fixed part of our process, right? That has to happen to set the maximum number of buildable lots.
It's not, my reading of the bylaw is that it's not a set number, that you're supposed to use the conventional subdivision and the formula to determine the number of lots in general, not, I don't believe there was a shall in there. The maximum number of lots shall be what was.
Yeah, I know,
type of thing.
I gotcha.
But yes, general practice is usually the maximum number of lots is what's shown on a conventional.
Okay.
There's 3 criteria
Yeah,
in there that, the conventional. The second one's information provided by the applicant indicating development potential of the land. And then the third one was the equation that Phil had mentioned,
yeah,
using the open space, the
Yeah.
area, the wetlands, that zoning districts. So there's 3 that it says to be used as guidelines.
yeah. And I think that we've always used all 3 of them. Carol, did you have a question?
I guess I have 2 questions. First, I do like this plan much better, but if the first criteria is showing that the property is doable as a conventional plan, and you're taking out a portion of the land, is it still viable as a conventional subdivision? And what's going to happen to the land that you took out, and why did you take it out? If it was originally considered in the proposal for the subdivision to establish all the standards, then you're now taking out a huge chunk of land. So can you explain why?
So you have to do it up here, Ron, because people at home can't hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we did submit a plan with the through road for the new conventional plan, which is floating around here somewhere. It does comply with all of the rules and regs, the open space ratio to the wetlands and to the entire tract itself.
Right.
Is that with the 500-foot
That's,
road?
But
Dead end?
that-
it's a 1,000-foot, no, it's 10 lots in a conventional subdivision, and it's all within the land that we have designed the open space plan on.
Sorry, through the chair.
So-
So is it a cul-de-sac though?
No, it's a through road.
Oh, a through road, okay.
The conventional
Yeah.
layout has to be a through road.
Okay,
As Phil mentioned, it's
Okay.
got to either be, I don't even think it can be 500 feet conventional. I think that's a whole, well, maybe it can, but I think
We don't
that's
need
a
to go
whole-
there, yeah. So that was the original plan you presented us, so the U?
Yes.
That's not, this is a new original, this is a new
Right.
conventional plan, right? But in the subject property.
Just because I'm particularly confused, I guess. That plan right there that shows that you can develop this land with this many lots has an in and an out, and it's going over property that you're now excluding?
The land for the actual end of the roadway, yes. The last 600 feet of roadway.
So I guess my question is, how is it still doable as a conventional plan if you've taken that property out? If you take that property out, you can't have an in and out anymore, or can you?
We don't want an in and out. We just wanted to do the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so you're...
But you still have the open space. You still have the same land area that's in this plan with the in and out road.
Okay, so my second question from before is you've carved out now 12 for 15 acres from that plan to this one?
Correct.
Yep.
Acres off this side.
Okay, so what's happening with that 12 to 15 acres?
There's gonna be 2 A&R lots, as we discussed way back when. And the lots are, there'll be 7 or 8 acres each.
With a real long driveway?
Yep.
So I think that our process has always been that you have to use the acreage you're gonna use and show the conventional plan and get your calculation of the available units from that. And I don't know that I would support deviating from our conventional strategy that we use all the time. Because I think that we are at least confusing planning board members by comparing 2 different total land masses. And I don't think that that's part of the typical
Well,
process.
with the exception of the roadway itself, making the second entrance for a long road, just showing that you can make a 10-lot subdivision in the land area that we're using for the open space plan, that can be done. If the road connected out through a 500-acre parcel, and that's what made a 1,000-foot cul-de-sac work, would we then just include the other 500 acres or 100 acres or whatever it was? I mean, I don't know. We did look for this in the rules and regs, and we couldn't find anything specific to it, but I don't know.
Phil, yeah.
So, I would make a suggestion that they use this as their plan, but then they update the open space plan to include the 2 additional lots, the A&R lots. I don't know if that's possible. That way it would,
Is there a reason it wouldn't be possible?
well, I think the buffer zone issue maybe, I don't know.
Well, and then, and you've
Because
got,
you did that at your other one, your Hunter's, you took 2 lots off
right, in advance.
in advance.
I'm not sure I'd be comfortable putting A&R lots in the
Right.
plan, something
talked
outside
about
our
doing-
control.
And we talked about doing that with this, but we're into the process, so.
So just an opinion, if I may?
Hold on one second,
Sure.
Dave, yeah.
Sure.
We could, I suppose we could leave the layout for this fictitious road there.
As a
I
paper
don't know.
street,
The paper street, yeah, I don't know.
and then,
So I may be,
easement.
let me let Dave make his comment
I
first.
was just gonna say that personally, I like the approach of the road and 2 entrances, and it seems now that kind of jury-rigging things to get a cul-de-sac that we really kind of frown upon as a town, in addition to some A&R lots, it just doesn't sound kosher to me. That's just an opinion, though.
Yeah, so through the chair, I tend to agree with David. I mean, just with that 600 feet to kind of get this new conventional plan in, it just kind of goes outside of what we've done in the past. So if there's some way, and maybe it's Phil's comment or something, to be able to kind of realign so that it becomes, so everything's kind of included in this new conventional plan, you don't have to kind of, and I'm sure there's a reason why, right? Otherwise it would be too simple, straightforward to do, to be able to have that included. The other question I had, and it's not necessarily germane here, but is COMCOM, do they need to kind of see this again? Or they already seen it and blessed everything with the new changes?
Yeah, they've seen it again, and we've talked about the common drive, as I talked about the planning board with the common drive when I first floated this plan, and that they were very much happier with the common drive out to those two lots, those two A&R lots, than a full-blown road.
The two A&R lots, again, are outside of the plan that is in front of us.
The conventional.
Right?
Right.
That's, yep.
So, in all fairness to everybody, I'm probably violently agreeing, and I'll let Mary go after me. We just need to have a predictable process, not only for the board, but also for the public. And I get that it's, that you're working with a challenging site, and it's probably gonna be a beautiful little development, and conceptually, we embrace that. But the process has to be something, apples to apples and predictable. Mary?
My comment was, in response a little bit to David, that I believe that the intent, and certainly the result is that, with the cul-de-sac instead of a full road, this development will impinge on less of the wetlands. And so, that was something that the developer just mentioned, but I think that that really can balance the issue of the, we don't love cul-de-sacs kind of thing.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last time. It's going to be less of a what?
It doesn't impinge on wetlands as much.
Right.
So, and I think that balances the cul-de-sac issue.
And it's so many fewer homes too, so.
That's true.
Does it balance the double driveway issue as well? Sorry, through the chair.
Hold on a second, Amy's going
Yep.
right now.
No, I was just gonna say, it's far fewer homes, so less impact on the, I think there's more open space, correct?
It's not more open space, because they're changing the space that we're looking at.
Okay.
And then the other space that is not here anymore is gonna be proposed to be those two A&R lots.
And is there any change on the affordable housing since it's smaller?
Yes.
There would be none.
One
Yeah.
instead of, what's that?
None.
There'll be none.
There wouldn't be any required. And just for the public's information, it is going to be 10 lots, but not 10 new ones, which is why it doesn't trigger the affordable housing requirement.
Yeah, there are 10 lots proposed in the open space subdivision. There are three existing lots. One of the houses is going to be raised, and possibly two of them will be raised, but one is definitely staying, an existing house.
That's, when you come in the drive, that's the first one that's existing is on the left there, the
Yes.
shadow of an outline, and then the other one's in the back, but that one's staying. And then the second one on the left is as well?
The second one on the left is going to be raised.
Lot 2?
No, lot 2 is going to stay.
Okay,
There's an existing house underneath lot 4.
okay, thank you.
That's going to be torn down.
Okay.
Okay. Do you mind, so we've talked a little bit about the fact that we don't have the first step of the process that we typically have, which is the conventional plan on the piece of property you're going to build on for the open space plan. And I think we're all agreed that we need that. Will you walk us through just the list of waivers that you need for this project so that we have that as part of the thinking up front?
The first waiver is the request for
Yeah.
the cross-sections of the road. Now that it's 1,000 feet, I could actually remove that if, just to reduce the limit of, or the number of waivers. Second one is trees to be retained within the right-of-way due to the narrow width. It's going to be almost impossible to retain any trees within the right-of-way that's there.
Yep.
We do have a tree planting plan. We are proposing street trees. As far as tree cutting on the site, it's going to be as minimal as possible. So, I mean, that's kind of the whole idea behind the open space, is to preserve as much vegetation as possible. The third one is location of proposed streetlights. Looking for a waiver on the streetlights. I believe that's a standard
Yep.
townwide one. Disturbance to natural topography. Depths of fill will be over 8 feet due to the wetlands at the initial entrance, coming in off of Wood Street at the existing Whisper Way.
Yep.
Now, under the subdivision, I had added and emailed late.
Today.
Yes.
Yep. Which I haven't even seen, but go ahead and
Right.
just outline
Yeah,
it.
just verbally. Road slopes, section 8.2.6.A. It's the maximum side slopes allowed by the subdivision is 3 to 1. In the existing Whisper Way entrance, to be able to enter and to be able to go at the maximum slope, and without grading onto the town forest, there's a section I'd have to go at a 2 to 1 slope along the edge. 2 to 1 slopes are able to be stabilized and, you know, without erosion, and it's still not a retaining wall along right away, but a 2 to 1 slope rather than a 3 to 1.
Okay.
And the other one was for the side slopes of the detention ponds are required to be 3 to 1. Due to the footprint that we have to work with for vernal pool buffers, the existing lot 2, and then the roadway, we were requesting a 2 to 1 waiver. Maintaining the same berm width of 10 feet and installing a impervious barrier within the berm to prevent any seepage that would go through. The pond itself is only 3 feet deep. It's not a very deep pond. It's very minimal. So those were the two that were added, 2 to 1 slopes for the roadway and 2 to 1 slopes for the detention pond.
So there's 2 more coming.
Yes.
Okay.
The zoning bylaw was a buffer of a minimum of 100 feet. There's one section, one small section, between the town forest and the corner of basically lot 10 at the end of the cul-de-sac, where the lot line comes down and takes a hard right and bends in. If you see it, it's that little notch that sits right up in the center at the northern section between lot 10 and the open space. That's only 77 feet. We're able to maintain the 100 feet everywhere else around the subdivision, the open space subdivision. So it's just that one small little sliver where we're working with tight frontages. It's
Okay. So, and the last one?
the lot frontage depth.
Yep.
Due to the steep slopes and the wetlands, we were gonna use common driveways. The lot frontage depth is basically a square or rectangle that would need to be, it parallels the lot frontage and goes back for a certain depth to form a rectangle in that area.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever seen this in front of the board, so an explanation is really helpful to me.
It's, I believe 60 feet.
It's 210-111, A, the lot frontage
Yep.
frontage depth requirement contained in this chapter. 210, Article 1, 2-4, definitions. Definition of lot frontage may be waived by the planning board in order to achieve the purpose of this article. So what they want you to do with this box thing is there's a definition for that back in the 204 thing. and they want you to put a box at the front of the lot. And I think for 3 of the lots here, it stretches the lot out, and it makes the driveway longer, and we were trying to preserve a few septic systems, and it also interferes with that objective. So,
Okay, it will be helpful to identify which ones those are, for sure, as Betty's comment.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Nasser, correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of that is to prevent some kind of, it's to try and discourage some type of bottlenecking where you get the frontage and then it narrows down to some point. So they're trying to keep the lots as whole as they can. And that's, I mean, if you look at the lot plan, there's a couple of lots that have, I'm assuming they meet the frontage requirement. So they have the
Yes,
frontage there.
yeah.
And then they narrow down.
Right.
and they can meet the formula. We can reconfigure those lot lines to make the box fit in the front of the lots, but it just creates problems other places. But, I mean, we can do that, and I don't think it's gonna change the bottlenecking at all on these lots, because they're gonna be a common driveway that, runs down 400 or 500 feet. So,
It's an effective.
but we can definitely,
Can I
Yeah, we-
piggyback on
Yeah.
that comment,
Yeah.
Mr. Nation? You talked about it creates some issues or challenges elsewhere. What are those other challenges? If you put the box there, do this and what happens?
it just fattens things out, it shifts things around, and it just drags the houses down further away from the road.
Essentially, on an open space subdivision like this, it's creating area in the front of the lots that's not gonna be used for anything.
Right.
It's really, if the lots were only 100 feet deep and they were standard rectangular lots on a subdivision, like,
Yeah.
standard checkerboard subdivision, yes, it would make sense, especially when you get into some of the cul-de-sacs where you get the pie shapes and things like that. But on a subdivision like this, we could take those boxes and we can put them in the usable area around each of the houses. But the area up near the road is just, it's dead area.
I get it.
So, one of the next thing that we're gonna do, one of the things we're gonna do is add to the, outline. And so a detailed discussion and a decision on each of those waivers is now part of our typical outline, so we're gonna need to add that. I don't think it's here. Do we have any comments from other town departments? I don't remember in particular new comments. Did anybody see them in the packet? I don't remember seeing new comments to
There was
this.
a letter from the fire
Fire chief,
stating
yes.
what Mr. Nation
Yeah,
said.
representative, yep. Okay. Okay, so on our conventional outline for these hearings, the next thing is to add any items to the outline, either the planning board members first and then the public. I don't know if there's any public here to comment on this, but we'll start with planning board members. Are there any other additions to the outline? Okay, how about, is there anybody from the public who's here to talk about this particular? Okay, all right. So just, then just the detailed discussion on the waivers. Does anybody feel like we need to schedule another site walk?
I was just gonna think about that, right? It's been maybe over.
Probably 2 years.
Yeah, it's probably
it
about
really?
right.
No,
No, because I've been on a sidewalk.
I've been on 2 sidewalks.
Yep.
Okay, so at least a year.
No, less than a year.
And I couldn't make one, so it's.
Yeah, I couldn't
it's
make one
last
too, so
summer.
I missed it, yep.
Losing my mind, but
The trees are taller, the leaves are deeper.
There's more ticks.
Is the car
It's
still
not as
up on
cold.
the ledge?
the car's still there.
The car is still there.
Yep.
Cars.
It probably makes sense.
So I think that, we will have 2 new members of the planning board after the election, so it makes sense to make it possible for them to come out and trot around potentially. But we can. as long as you're comfortable making that available to them, if they want to do that, that would be great.
Yep. So on the bait and switch, thing here with the 24 lots and the, going down to 10 lots or / 12 lots with the 2 A&R lots. The 10 lot proof plan for the conventional does have a road that runs out through the land that was on the original plan. But I don't follow the logic chain to include all of that land. The land that was 24 lots, and now it's gonna be 10 or 12. I mean, I get the road part, and, you know, maybe we could leave it as a paper street or calculate the area of the road and add it to the open space in the 10 lot. I don't know, it just seems like there would be a way to make this happen. And maybe I'm focusing on it and I shouldn't be, but,
Carol, my problem with it is, the first rule is that you have to show you can develop this property as a conventional property, conventional plan. And you can do that with that acreage in there, because you've got your road coming all the way down.
correct.
Once you take that acreage out, I'm not sure you can develop the property as a conventional plan any longer.
But we wouldn't take the acreage out, we would just leave the acreage in for the road.
So if I can ask the question a little different way, on that 31 acres that you're including in this, how many houses can you develop on those 31 acres in a conventional plan? Because you haven't showed us that.
24, we had 24.
Not in the 31 acres, that's the full acreage looping around.
No, on 31, we have 10. Yeah, that's,
But you can't get out.
well, yeah, we can.
can.
We've
On
drawn.
the
we-
31?
It's expensive, but we could.
We've drawn a road through there, the same as any other yield plan. It just. we don't-
Okay, so you, and sorry not to be,
No,
I'm just trying to make it clear for me. You can develop this property as a conventional plan, getting in and out, but then you've taken the road section out to develop in another manner. That's where I'm having, I understand that you don't want to build the round. I don't want you to. I like it better with just one road. It's a lot less impactful to do it that way. But the rules specifically state you have to be able to show that you can do it in order not to do it.
The only reason we didn't do it originally was because of a stormwater basin that was within 100 feet of a vernal pool. What we could have done is come off of Wood Street at a 10% slope up for about a grade change of about 20 feet with retaining walls on both sides, and then run it back down to the other side. It's buildable, but in this economics, you know, as far as lot cost goes, it
Right,
wasn't
so-
advantageous at that time.
So we don't want you to build it, right? We all feel the same way, but if you have to have that property to be able to build the lots you want to build in the equation, then you have to have that property. You can't use it in two different ways.
We don't need that property, we just need that section where the road is. Because we
Exactly.
conform all of the,
I think that's fine
with
now.
all the rules and regs.
So.
I think that's-
Let's just pretend we can leave the road there, and
Okay,
everything works.
then you have to
But you
leave
don't get this
the
acreage.
acreage for the road in the plan.
Right,
You can't take it out and use it elsewhere.
Right, well,
So
that's,
at that point, then it just makes sense to build a conventional.
well,
And
that's,
leave this-
I mean, that's what that's
Because-
what my notes are saying, it's like,
Because at that
I'm gonna
point,
leave here with 24 lots instead of 10.
well, I mean, you're creating a
Or
right
12.
of way for 10 lots, plus you can still get the 2 that would have been A&R.
Right.
It just,
Yep.
instead of taking that land and using that acreage for the open space in this, it's possible to leave the actual strip of
Road?
road there and
Is the drop-off so deep in between the A and R and the plan, and the 10 development plan that you have, that you can't loop it through what the A and R driveways?
It would just essentially, the road would come through here, the strip of land, and run out, and it would remain there. And then when the open space came, you'd still have this strip that goes out and through. I'm just having a hard time following. Is that?
I think the basic problem is if we allow you to use land to go through the process and come up with your buildable land, your lots, and to say this is the property or the size of the development will allow on this site, and then allow you to take acreage out and use it in a different manner, I think we're setting ourselves up for a huge precedent that, the next guy comes along with 100 acres and he wants to use the same 5-acre space to access 2 different things, and you've done this. So how do we say no to the next guy that wants to use the land twice
Could the yield plan
if we're
show-
letting you do it? I'm sorry?
Could the yield plan show 12, including the 2 A&Rs, or?
From my perspective, they just need to show a piece of property that has an in and an out to determine how many lots you can put on it. And whatever property you need to use to show that needs to stay in your plan.
I agree.
I agree as well.
State right away has to remain.
Yeah, you can't take it out and use it somewhere else for a
Okay,
different
well,
purpose.
we can probably work around that.
I can do that.
I think that can work.
Okay, perfect.
We'll be using it for access for 2 A and R lots, though.
Then you've got 12 lots total on that parcel of land.
Right.
Well,
But the other lots are the A
different-
and R lots.
But
So
then,
then you get into, well, can you mandate that it's gonna be an open space plan with the open space? I don't know.
Sounds like that.
So I think that we are all engaged in the conversation and would like to find a way to support a better, open space development in there than the conventional. I'm just not sure that we see it yet, but if there, I would utilize the expertise in our land use department, and just, and fill and find the way that works for what you hope to actually build there, including the 2 houses that you're
The A&R.
putting on, planning to put through as an A&R. I mean, I think the planning board, is philosophically supportive of this nicer open space, less land consumptive, wetland infringing
Less
plan.
dense.
And less dense,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? But we do, I think that it's an excellent point, that we do have to see it in a way that we don't make some ridiculous leap of precedent that hurts us another way.
Understood.
All right, we talked about the Concom. Where are you in that process?
We have a public hearing coming up. It's like a week away, I think, or whenever the next meeting is, I believe. And it's going to include the 1,000-foot cul-de-sac, which is 1 crossing and 1 detention basin, and then the common drive, which would be, I don't know, maybe that'll be a paper street. I don't know if we can do a paper street with a common drive on top of it.
I have no idea what the Conservation Commission contemplates in that case.
Oh, no, I mean, that would be a planning issue or a
Yeah.
legal issue, I guess.
Yeah,
But we'll look into that.
all right. So next week, you're in front of them again. And the zoning compliance, is that just the 2 waivers? Is that just the,
It's more than 2 waivers.
oh, but the zoning, I'm sorry, the specific,
210-113 and 111.
Buffer area, lot frontage.
Yes, those 2.
The 2 waivers are for the zoning compliance.
so, okay. So I'm just asking the applicant and the planning board members, does it make sense to wrangle with those 2 conversations until we get step 1 done?
agree.
What do you agree? That we should wait until we get okay. And again, I don't necessarily feel that, I think that the planning board is willing to entertain those waivers for sure, for the reasons that you outlined them. So it's not, I'm not putting off the discussion because we don't think we can have it or we can resolve it equitably, but I think it makes sense to know exactly what we're looking at first. There is this correct? There's no traffic impact plan or impact?
No, I don't think so. You mean traffic study?
Yeah. Did you have that in your comments, Phil?
We did, I mean, it's a substantial,
I'm sorry.
Less of an impact. So, obviously, this is reduced from 22 to 10.
Right.
So we didn't find any issue with the 22 lots.
Right.
So it was less of a non-impact.
Even less of a non-impact, okay. All right.
Is that like too negative?
So are we agreed we could cross off traffic? It's not, we don't anticipate that being an issue? Okay.
I agree.
The next one is stormwater management.
Do you have,
Any particular concerns above and beyond what, I mean, I know the correspondence is crossing paths, right?
Yeah. So, just like any of the other aspects of the project, we did have some comments.
Yep.
Dan provided us with some responses. I think there's some still outstanding. I think he's got some test pits scheduled.
Okay.
We'd like to see the results of that, relative to his basin. We need to have the discussion about the slopes, the basins, and there's a few other, technical things. I don't think his approach is that far off.
Okay,
but,
so we don't see any big issues coming, for sure. And it shouldn't change with the previous discussion about the conventional plan.
Right.
Okay. So we'll leave that open until those issues are finally resolved, but. The next one is utilities, water, fire, sewer, gas, electric, phone, cable, and septic system. So are you gonna be hooked up to town water?
yes.
Yes.
Yep, I met with John Westerling, and he asked, and I said yes, and he had given the okay to have it before, so he was just looking for an update on the plan.
Okay. Not sewer,
Nope.
and you're gonna have, a common septic system?
Possibly,
Possibly.
yeah. It could be for as few as 2 systems,
And the other houses would be septic individually?
yes.
Okay.
And if I may, Madam Chairman,
Yep.
what determines whether if you have 2 on there or 3 or?
The soils are very tough, high groundwater, a lot of ledge, but, there are systems up there. There are 3 existing systems, and we know there are areas for others. With this new lot configuration and only 10 lots, it's a whole bunch easier than 24.
Then 24, yeah. With the 24, you'd absolutely probably have to have.
Yes.
So here's
Some treatment.
yeah.
Anybody else have any questions on utilities beyond that?
Just one question on if there is a common sewer,
Septic?
excuse me, common septic, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any reserve or anything that's set up to maintain that common septic, and is that built? I mean, I know there's no condo association docs, but I'm just thinking of Clover Farm Road and all the problems they've had with their common septic, and with nobody having the money to put into it. I don't know what's required, but I'm just
Yeah.
curious how you plan to address that.
Talked to Board of Health a lot about that, and they're aware of all the problems that come up, so those will be avoided. Well, the sewer lines will be, within the layout of the road, probably on the edge of the layout, and done properly, and not crossing and recrossing property lines, and it'll be like simple and approved by the Board of Health.
I don't know anything about all the problems on Kilala Farm Road.
So who maintains it if something happens?
Oh, the homeowners association.
So there will be something covered in the homeowners association
Absolutely.
for maintenance of it,
Yep.
okay.
They'll buy into it.
So that's interesting that you'd have two homes, two systems that are included, and everybody is going to be responsible for it?
No, they would be responsible for that.
It'll be
for
built
that.
into the homeowners association that those two homeowners
Yeah, I
will be
mean,
responsible.
whoever.
Yeah.
Two's just a guess. It could be, we have enough room there for 8, so.
In that spot down below?
Yes.
I gotcha. Okay, so that'll be interesting. That'll be a little different, but.
Yeah. It'll be worked out in the proper manner with Board of Health, or whoever wants to get involved.
Not me. So Gary, can I just ask this question, because you were saying the property lines and everything, is that part of the problem, is that lines cross property lines?
Yes, and then there's also, there's no homeowners association to maintain it, so as they've had problems, then there's been a lot of
Who pays for it?
challenges associated with who pays for it. There's, is the person whose lot it's crosses pay for it, or the people that are connected to it pay for it, and you can't
Yeah,
just pass
I
the
gotcha.
hat to take donations to
Good times.
incur some pretty major expenses. Just
Fascinating.
want to make sure we avoid that.
Yeah, no,
would
at
be a
all
good thing.
costs.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't think that we're not gonna solve that problem because it already exists, but I do know, so I live on a long common drive, happily. But I do know that, for example, just you asking the question, Gary, I do know that one of the issues we had is the leach field went down along the common drive, so we did have one instance of difficulty there where, some use of the property that is allowed caused damage to the system that somebody else had to fix. So it's an interesting question and important to avoid.
It's not trivial.
No, it's not trivial.
Yeah.
It's a huge expense.
Big money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I don't think that we're done on that until we see the how that all falls out, but it doesn't seem like there's any big issues. Do we still have the possibility of some of the attractive access to trails, potentially access to the horse trails as well, or no?
Well, I think the horse trails is pretty much out of the picture at this stage.
Yeah. Is that the two A&R lots off to the side there?
Well, yeah, there's a possibility of doing something there.
Yeah.
But, so if you go up that driveway, I think if we could cut that driveway down, I think you'd have room for two horse trailers on the left-hand side, or maybe even the right-hand side. And it might be on town land, the right-of-way is huge there. But the problem is, I think they'd have to drive in and then back out. And I don't think that they wouldn't have to back on to Wood Street. I think we could avoid that, but I just think it's gonna be an uncomfortable situation. And, in order to make a large enough area for them to turn around in up top, I don't think that's gonna work.
But certainly, the trails on the other side are easily accessible still, that there's nothing changing over there.
Yeah, they're better. And one house, two houses have direct access to the open space in the cul-de-sac plan. So they can walk out the back door and be on open space, or they're on the road and the town access is right, the
Yeah, the little town.
Cameron Woods access is right there.
Just to clarify though, so
Yep.
the horse trailer parking is gone, but are you still planning to put in other trails on the property or maintain the trails that are there now?
Yes.
And those are shown on
Yeah,
the
they're on the plan.
drawing, all
Yeah, all the dashed, some of them are already there, the ones that are not dashed. Or,
okay, the ones that are not dashed are already there, and the ones that are dashed
right,
are ones that you'll be putting in.
yep.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
really nice.
And some perimeter trails around the, yeah.
It's nice for the homeowners. I was obviously nice for the rest of us, but it's nice for the homeowners as well. It's a nice
And
feature.
just, I mean, if I may, on those trails, are they just dirt and grass that gets matted down, or is it?
That's what we would propose. Chris and I took a walk on a subdivision we did in Norfolk 3 weeks ago, and with the town planner and I think a DPW director, and we walked along all these existing paths, and they're beat down really well. They're leaves, pine needles, and well, so what do you want? What kind of wood chips do you want? The guy said, no, none, because you fall down on this stuff. You know, it's slippery, and
I didn't think
so these were just paths that were easy to walk on, and they'd been just beat down over the years by existing trails.
people walking on.
So we made a trailhead with the, you know, the wood chips and a little wooden border, and then we cleared up some of the areas to kind of coax people into where the trail we think it should be.
Yeah.
But,
And then it would be up to the
That's about it.
association to maintain that however they wanted
I
to, or
don't think there's gonna be any maintaining it. It gets
natural?
used.
Just natural. Alright. That's cool.
Yes.
I have a question about the open space. Are you planning on maintaining the open space in a homeowners association, or are you gonna deed it to a third party, or what's your plan?
I don't know, it used to be the planning board would kind of twist your arm on that. I don't know how that goes nowadays. I'd be all for the homeowners to own it, but if the planning board wants it given over to whoever,
I think the open space has to be open to the public, right, for the open space
So to the town.
bylaw?
No, I think it can be private open space. I don't think it has to have public access for it to be considered open space. But I don't know that for sure.
So it says, common open space in any open space and landscape preservation development shall be conveyed to the town, may be accepted by it for park or open space use, or for a nonprofit corporation, or the principal purpose of which is the conservation of open space, or a corporation or trust owned or to be owned by the owners of lots within the development.
Could deed it to Holt.
Yeah, the last thing you said is, or it could be the homeowners association.
Yeah.
if
But
it-
does it,
and then
I
it
was
sa- it
listening.
it continues. If a
Oh.
corporation or trust owned by the owners of the lots is utilized, ownership thereof shall pass with the conveyances of the lots.
okay, and did you say that it has to be open to the public or not?
Just says it's common open space.
I thought the first sentence said that.
What's it say in the very beginning, John?
It says common open space in any open space and landscape preservation development shall be conveyed. So just
Shall
call
be
it common open
conveyed,
space.
right? So to any of those different
Entities.
groups.
So it does say, if common open space is not to be conveyed to the town, the applicant for the open space development must include a program describing how the common open space will be maintained in perpetuity. So it shall be conveyed to the town, and then if it isn't conveyed to the town, the homeowners have it?
No,
Or a
it
third
was
party.
town
One
or
of.
organization, there's
Yes.
a list. So it does look like we
That's right.
could do it to the homeowners association. My question was just, does it have to be accessible to the general public?
Sounds like a good
Sounds like
one to
it
read
doesn't.
a bunch of
Oh, he's
times.
still reading. So far, right.
Just on my quick review, it does not look like it
Okay.
requires that it's open to the public, but I can give it a closer look and come back.
I was gonna note that Holt owns the land up here, and there's an existing trail.
Yeah,
But there's hundreds of acres over there,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
with the town access.
Yeah, and actually, there's open space, town-owned open space on both sides, right? So it sounds like it would be very attractive for it to be
Open to the
usable,
public, I
open
think.
to the public.
I agree.
So, would that be, is that gonna be any problem? or-
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Just a open space follow-up question. Your shared septic is in the open space? Is that,
No, it's on its own lot.
I'm sorry?
It's on its own individual lot.
Oh, is it?
You can see it in the drawings, not on that
Yeah,
as
it's
as
not
well,
shown.
but in the drawings. it
And if-
shows
and if-
it.
I do see a little black line around it. Okay.
And whatever we don't use, we'll just push onto the open space. more than likely.
Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't in your open space.
Are there historical features?
Not to my knowledge.
There are ledge faces that have been there for a few years, and we plan to save as many of those as we can. It'll be most or all of them.
Okay. It's gonna be really, it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is, it's just ugly.
It's just ugly to work on, probably, right? Yes, okay. You know, I'm like,
It's really, really
I
rough.
got you.
And none
yeah.
of the homes to be raised are over 75 years old, right? And none of the homes, they're all newer, right?
Is there any member of the public that wants to be heard on this? There isn't usually on the Whisper Ways, but I just want to make sure. Okay. I think that we have about exhausted our ability to talk through the issues until beta is completed.
Yep.
And the subdivision, the conventional plan is worked out.
We'll work that out, I
Okay.
hope. Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, so when would you like to come? Oh, I bet we have to extend a deadline somewhere, right? We have the continued public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan is due by May 28th. So we'll have to push that out when we decide when we're meeting next. When do you want the next available time, or do you?
Yes. So hopefully Dan and Phil will make some progress on the engineering, and they have to.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I just have I think a process question
Yep.
with Fran and I leaving and
Yep.
Frank not being able to vote
Yep.
on it.
So the
You
two.
need 6.
The two votes
Right.
for the, for both the amendment to the special permit concept plan and the continued for the definitive subdivision plan, one needs a 2/3 vote, one needs a majority vote. It means that they both need the same vote, 6 of who will be the 7 available members, right? 6 of the available 9 members, because Frank will not be able to vote. So it's the 2 that have changed.
Right, 1, 2, 3,
And
4,
Frank.
5, 6.
So you'll need 6.
6 and 5.
Unanimous of
There's
one.
6.
Is that what you mean?
Is that right? Did I get that right?
6 for the special permit.
Yeah.
5 for the subdivision.
Majority.
Okay, simple majority, sure.
So
Right.
each of them, the way it works out, each of them has 1 member wiggle room.
There we go.
Because
That's where my head was getting.
How does the 6 have the wiggle room?
What's that?
How does 6 have wiggle room?
So Frank technically can still vote.
On the brand new
special
one,
permit
as long as
since it's the first
as long as he watches this. Right.
hearing, But he cannot on the other one because he's missed 2 meetings.
Right, so he can vote on the first one, the one that just opened tonight that we just talked about. Won't
That
be able
means
to
it-
vote on the second one.
Okay.
Thank you, that's where I was getting hung up. So just so you know what's.
Still
you know,
tight though, right?
the votes that are in front of you.
So, of the 6, is that 6 out of 6? Is it 6 out of, is it 9?
6
It
out
would
of
be
7.
6 out of 7.
6 as long
6
as,
out of 7 on the first one, the
as
one.
long
that-
as Frank doesn't miss any more
Right,
hearings.
yes.
And I will look into the,
So before the meeting, I'm just gonna say this in the public session with everybody here, before the meeting, I asked John to do the research. There is supposedly a way to, continue open public hearings through the election season, and use that first meeting, that we meet after the newly elected members are sworn in and are here, to just continue, not withdraw or close and restart. And the first meeting, this is a 10,000 feet level, the first meeting would be a detailed recap so that all members are brought up to speed. But we've never done it here. Supposedly, it's a possibility that we can do it. I've asked John to find out if that's true and how we do it, if we can do it, if the members are willing to entertain it. So, that piece is in play. But usually it's not too onerous. We try not to make it onerous if you had to withdraw and start over kind of thing, but. All right, so when's the next available slot?
So June 10th at 9:30.
9:30 to 10?
Actually, we do have, it's only 5 minutes. Yeah, June 10th, unless you wanted to start at 7 o'clock. Then you could have
The whole wanting
7
thing.
o'clock to 7:35. June 10th.
I have a preference for not necessarily, what, you had a preference, do we have a preference for starting earlier?
I do.
Do we collectively have a preference for starting earlier?
Either way.
Frank does not, and Frank prefers to start as late as possible.
Yeah.
Or 7:30, but.
Okay.
But the only reason I don't, particularly in this one, if they need Frank to be here,
Oh, yeah.
the chances of him being here at 7 are less than they are of him being here at
9:30.
9:30.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue the, yep,
I will not be here.
June 10th.
June 10th. Okay, so I anticipate that you could work together and that would be, you have substantively done the review and you can work together, but definitely let us know if there are big issues for some reason.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody? All right, so I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing on the amendment to the special permit concept plan to June 10th at 9:30.
So moved.
I'm sorry, and I should say also the continued public hearing on the Whisper Way definitive subdivision plan until the same, both of them move, and to extend the decision for the continued public hearing on the definitive subdivision plan to what, Kobe? A week after? So June 17th? Okay, so is that amenable to the applicant?
Sure.
Okay,
So moved.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Yep. So I will entertain a motion, by the way, we are exactly on time, I'm just saying.
Good, it's getting good.
I finally figured out how to do this thing. I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing for 17 Wilson Street, the scenic road
Didn't set
application.
up a site visit, we were talking.
We did not specifically set up a site, we decided that the two members that have not trod around that property a couple of times may make the point to go out with one of them, they'll make that
Okay.
possible.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing for 17 Wilson Street scenic road application, TGA Solar.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Happy Mr. Terrible?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Just for the record, my name's Christopher King with Atlantic Design Engineers. I'm here before you this evening on behalf of TGA Solar, seeking approval for a scenic road permit. As everyone's well aware, as part of the special permit process, our original driveway location was revised, and alternate B was selected during that process. And so what we've done is we've revised one sheet of that approved set to reflect the approved alternate location, revised the grading, the equipment, the landscaping, and all the notes, just to make sure they reference the appropriate plan. It contains the same set of notes at the entranceway as far as maintaining vegetation, branches less than 5 inches as measured 6 inches from the trunk, and trees, trees less than 3 inches in diameter. And then that's important because those are the regulations that are put forth for tree removal by the tree warden. I was in receipt of an email from John, the acting tree warden, and we reviewed some pictures, understanding that I didn't have the information immediately necessary, in front of me as far as the height of the tree as measured 4.5 feet above the ground. After reviewing the pictures, John was comfortable with, and if the planning board's amenable to it, we can certainly have a condition that any trees that meet that criteria that are to be removed be flagged prior to any pre-construction meeting. And then everyone would have a chance to review those. We are in concurrence that our intent is to save the larger diameter trees that were in the photographs, which were mentioned during the special permit process as well. And that's one of the reasons why that was a preferred location. And then additionally, and part of this is now we're required to do some work around the stone wall. As it was pointed out, the area is not in the best condition. It really is more kind of an earthen leaf litter formation with some scattered stones. We envision disturbing roughly 30 linear feet of that, so, we're offering to provide a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio and rebuild essentially 60 feet. We could go to either side, we could go to one side. It's really at the planning board's, maybe that's an item that, the final design could be as preferred by the planning board. And, again, we would be certainly trying to harvest as many of the stones as possible and reusing them, assuming that we would want to mimic the character of the original stone wall.
I'm just writing that down, I'm sorry, yep.
Sure.
Okay. So, we can start around the table. Anybody have any questions? Carol's good.
Sorry for my lateness, but I liked what I heard about the stone wall. 2-to-1 is generous. And as is often the case in some of the stone walls, if they could be made to look better, that's a positive.
Sure. Thank you.
But I think that it's important too that we had this issue. The mimicking of the character is really important to us too, particularly on that
Yep.
stretch of road. Yeah.
Sure.
So
And any
better
kind,
is in the eye of the beholder, right?
That's sort of, yeah.
and again, I'm unfamiliar with the scenic road permit process, but if you are able to put a set of conditions on, we would certainly be, like I said, willing to, provide details as things progress as to, we found this amount of stones, I'm sure there are other stones within the site that we're able to reuse, some we're obviously not able to, and, basically utilize those up front as well, so.
Yeah, I think the stone wall and replication is sort of an easier one to deal with. The trees are really individually considered, honestly.
Sure.
So, so that sort of remains, I think that if any deviation from the plan on the trees were to happen, any trees bigger than the 3 inches, is it 3 inches or 4 inches?
It's 3 inches or greater the way it's written, so
Okay.
including the 3 inches, 4.5 feet above the ground.
Yeah.
So we would flag them all prior to construction, review them, any deviation, certainly notify the board, and then per the email, we'd be certainly amenable to replacing any smaller caliper tree, like kind, within the right-of-way.
Right, okay, I think I understand. Frank, are you all set? Yeah.
I am addressing the plan on R204, page 204, where it shows the monuments and the equipment surrounded by the planned trees and greenery. I have some concerns because of what's there, and what we like about it could also be a detriment, because if you're driving towards Legacy, I guess it's a long way away, but
South.
if you're driving, is it south?
North.
North.
No,
North. If you're driving, right, it's north. Right, it's north.
Up the hill.
Right, so on the southern side of that equipment, it's rather exposed, in my opinion, because you see it at quite a range on that road. So So starting, like, as you approach the site, where the existing cart path sort of is demonstrated, I kind of have this opinion, I mean, we would have to go out and look at it, but that you could actually see that equipment. And I'm wondering if I could ask you should I know that? What is the dark dashed line that's on the back side of the equipment and the green ring
So,
there?
just to be clear, Deb, can I clarify? It's that bump that we're seeing?
Yeah,
As you
it's the
come
bump.
down the path,
Yeah.
right?
Do you want me
So,
to- do you want me
but,
to-
hold on. I just want to make sure, I'm happy to a certain extent to ask the question, because we're trying to protect the integrity of the scenic road, and this is impositional, but that is actually outside of the scenic
Yes.
road hearing. So, go ahead and ask
That's
the
what I was
question,
wondering,
kind
that's
of,
what I was
but-
wondering too, because it wasn't actually in the verbiage, but it was something that I
It's the
saw.
trees and the stone wall in the right of way. The stone wall.
So it
and
has to be in the
trees
right of way
In the
for it
right
to
of
be-
way.
Right. Okay, I just said
Yep,
what
no,
what
I
I
just wanted to make-
saw, just, right. I didn't think it was, but I
Yeah,
thought.
when I looked at the plans, I'll tell you that I had this, a similar thought, and, I hope that, you are sensitive to, how difficult it is to cite this and was to cite this, and that whatever consideration you can give to the neighbors' viewscape is appreciated.
Sure, absolutely, and I would be remiss, and I know it's been a little bit, but we do have a condition that allows us to go back and reevaluate the field as part of the special permit, so that could certainly be a mechanism in which the board could address that. We'd certainly be willing to, if we're going to remove 3 trees, I know the tree warden said replace them like kind, but maybe we can work to select a species and site them on the southern portion of the driveway within the right-of-way to offer the screen, and maybe rebuilding that portion of the wall would help to block that view. So I think that...
All of those things would be
That sounds
very...
I think that there are mechanisms in place, and I think, the applicant is certainly amenable to making sure that we, address the concerns in any way we can, so.
That makes me feel better too.
It does
'cause
too,
then at least
yeah.
there's a process in
I totally
place.
appreciate that, yep.
Okay, Melissa?
I'm good.
Mary?
My only question, and this has to do with just me reading plans and understanding them.
Sure.
So where the existing cart path comes out, there's no stones. No, it's shown here.
Correct, yep.
And you're not proposing to rebuild that portion, correct?
Again, I graphically had just shown 60 linear feet, but I thought I added some language to the note, or as directed by the planning board. So it really is a function of, understanding we're balancing multiple interests. We're really looking to what's most important to you folks, and if you let us know, the type of wall, if it's important to harvest every last stone that we can, or we source some like-kind stones from a local area and rebuild it to a certain standard or a certain look, maybe on a different street or a different scenic road in town, I think that is something that is, easily implemented, I think. And if there's a certain condition that you would want to put in to ensure that, then we'd be certainly amenable to that. But as far as where exactly the 60 feet would be, we'd be looking for some direction from one of the board's representatives.
I did think of a question.
Yes.
So you provided photographs of the trees to be removed.
Yes.
I think we do usually ask if you could take pictures of the existing stone walls before you do any work too, so that we were all looking at the same photos and people aren't saying it was one way.
Sure.
When it wasn't.
Yep. And I know these aren't the best, just with the time of year with the snow on the ground, so.
But now it would be better, yeah.
Yep.
Dave?
I am all set with everything that's been discussed. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think Mr. King brings up an interesting point, and I know that in general, we've had a strong preference to use existing stones when they rebuild stones. And in this case, since they're actually offering to rebuild more stone wall than they're actually removing, I think it would be helpful if we give him some guidance on what we'd like to do with that. And I'm honestly curious to hear if people have a preference there. And then my second question is that some of that stone wall is not in the best of shape. And for me personally, I'll just share my opinion. I'd rather put, potentially, and I think maybe it's worth hearing from some of the abutters as well, but I'd rather put some effort into rebuilding part of that wall that maybe isn't in very good repair than necessarily extending a, you know, somewhat mediocre stone wall. That's my take, but, again, I think it's worth us giving them some additional guidance on if we want them to bring in new material, if they're just gonna reuse, if they're taking other things from the site.
If I could add to that, I'm thinking that, I guess when the snow melts, or it has melted, to actually go out there and do a little survey and find out. I think pictures are great. Use what's existing, and if you have to add, there are resources out there that have some pretty nice moss-covered stone, so I think you maybe mix them in cleverly.
Yeah, I think, and again, if it was something where the final construction sequence or final design or protocol would be submitted to the board, you know, maybe even prior to the start of construction, I would think that's something they would kind of do last, just to maximize, you know, sight lines and whatnot going in and out of the site during construction. But, you know, at some point, you know, we could certainly put something in there so that we would come to you and say, okay, these are the pictures of what was there before construction. You know, so maybe it's prior to the start of construction. This is what's there with no snow. You know, during construction, we'll have the ability to get stuff from on-site that's going to be native and local. And then in the event that aren't, then, you know, they could even go as far as to even source something locally and see if they can find a supply of stones a certain diameter. And then just agree upon a stacked height and width and actual construction method. I think it would be just loose stacked, you know, so.
I agree.
So to piggyback on your point, in some areas, that's not much of a wall at all there. Right now. So I don't know if, you know, the thought was to kind of build this up. And the other question I would have, maybe a little bit of a governor, is are you looking to potentially build it up on both sides to the abutter on the south as well as all the way to the abutter's lot line on the north? Or is it to keep the current character and topography of what's, I think we need to give him a little bit of direction in terms of.
Yeah, I agree.
What that's gonna, what
Yeah.
it should look like.
Let me just say that we need to open the next public hearing and continue it till the end of this discussion. So I'm gonna entertain a motion to open the continued public hearings on Buckland Street and Leonard Street to continue, to be continued till the conclusion of this conversation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We should hear from the public before we go too much further, I think. So if any member of the public has any question or opinion on the stone walls and the trees?
Hello, Tom Shambo, 15 Wilson Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't think I need to say anything else about that background. Anyway, the stone wall, the size of the trees, the location, personally, I like the discussion that I'm hearing, and I appreciate all that's been done. If the stone wall is going to be rebuilt, my opinion, you can take it into consideration, is that it not be a 3-foot high wall. Keep it to the character of what's been there, you know, 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet. Also, if there's stones that are needed, there are significant stone walls in the property where they used to use it when it was a demarcation of a property line. So along the cart path to the left, you can see a whole bunch of stone wall work that's already there, stones that are there for the stone wall. So maybe those could be relocated, seeing they're going to be taking them down, it appears anyway, to preserve the character of the stone, the wall, you know, common materials and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Arnott, 51 Teresa Road. I apologize, I was not able to stop at home and get my notes from previous meetings on the solar panel development. Was this the property that there was some Native American interest in, and had been some surveys and input from that? And are any of these stones on this 30-foot linear stone wall that they're planning on removing and moving part of that? And do we need input from that group that participated earlier?
So I think I can answer that. I do not think that the stone wall at the border of the property is included. We can find out for sure. And we wouldn't want to, you know, I was thinking about Mr. Shambo's comment, we wouldn't want to, you know, move stones that are significant from within the property. But part and parcel of the permit is that group serving in consultation as the construction plan is going forward. And being part of the conversation and part of the effort to make sure that whatever is significant on site is protected in a way that they are in agreement with.
Okay, so then I would ask a follow-on question if the engineer, I'm sorry, was it John King? If he had... Chris?
Yeah, that's okay.
If he had gotten input from the people he's supposed to be talking with on this, and if we're talking about moving stones and things that are on the property, that be checked before any of that is done?
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask that question for sure when he comes back. Anybody else from the public? So Chris, just for the record, the stone wall on the border of the property, is it in any way involved in the Native American preservation efforts?
No, we walked the entire frontage, and there was one grouping that was outside of the right-of-way that is further north. If you remember the alternates, it went I think A, B, C. But
Yeah.
the northerly one that we didn't select, that was still southerly enough as to not impact that area. And they did walk up through the frontage area because the road has been moved away from Mr. Shambo's property and basically moves through the array itself, so that area was checked where the alternate B comes in now. And so that area, so there will be nothing in the right-of-way impacted by the alternate. I mean, as you noted, there is construction protocol in place to ensure that anything that's what I alluded to, stones we may or may not be able to use on site to rebuild, is that there are some stones we will, but I believe that row extending along Mr. Shambo's property line into the site, you can see the panels break there. That's actually was identified as something we cannot use. So, you know, every effort will be made to source stones on site that aren't deemed significant. And as far as the height goes, I agree. I don't think a 3-foot high wall will be in character, but again, that's what, if you're comfortable with a condition that kind of the final directive be issued by the planning board, maybe during a pre-construction meeting, we'd certainly be amenable to that.
The only thing that I'm thinking about right now too is just sort of reclamation of the scenic nature of the road where the cart path is going to not be used anymore. And just being attentive to that in the rebuild, and maybe the reclamation of trees. I know we just talked about the other spot too, but where you're going to switch the entranceway.
Yep.
Some thought to making it obvious that there's really only one small entranceway and some reclamation effort along what was the cart path. Does that make sense?
Yes, yep. And I think that area is, I believe it's in better shape towards our southeastern corner, if you will, right up against Mr. Shambo's property, and then slowly kind of becomes leaf litter and earthen. And I mean, with the construction activity out there, if, we could certainly try to, clean, if it is in fact just a wall covered with just years of leaf litter, we could certainly be amenable to taking a leaf blower to it and see what's under there, for lack of a better description.
Yeah.
That might do a little bit of good too and give us a sense of what's going out there. So we're certainly amenable to work with the board in whichever way you feel is most appropriate moving forward.
Just to keep this efficient, maybe I can propose something.
Yes.
And that's, I think that this is just echoing off of what Muriel has said, but if we were to, in the rebuilding effort, if we were to prioritize, number one, the area where the existing cart path is.
Sure.
Number two is, to me anyways, is to repair any parts of the existing wall that are deemed appropriate to make it consistent. And then number three is to make sure that The rest of it is continuous. So it's not that there's a break and then another portion of wall and then a break and then another portion of wall, but like those three things. If you rebuild the area across the cart path, repair any low line or deteriorated areas on the existing wall, and then make it as continuous as possible. And if you do that, then I'm personally satisfied.
And I would just, if I could add, in keeping with the character of the surrounding walls, like I'm not, just, if it's a little sort of broken down, that's what we, would want to see. We don't want to see, a perfectly
Tight
terrific,
stacked church.
terrific wall when the rest of the street leading up to it on both sides is a little bit more
Sure.
staggered.
And then
We could even build 10 feet of it and say, okay, this is what we're thinking based on what we're finding on site. And if you want to come out and take a look at it and say, no, I'd like it this way a little bit, or mess it up a little bit, make it a little tighter, we could certainly work something like
I'd just step to number 4 and just say that, the trees that are going to be removed, that they be replaced to provide for the screening of the historic ways, to maintain some of the character of it, I think would be really nice.
To the moderator, not the moderator, the chair. Mr. Moderator, we just had our town election. Can I suggest that we delegate to the DPW director to double check the wall instead of asking these guys to come before us again?
Traditionally, we would use the land use staff. We'd
Okay,
send-
well,
we'd send John
my
out.
point being
Yeah.
somebody that's readily available versus
Yes.
have to come before the board.
Yes, yeah, that's a good suggestion, I agree. Mary, were you starting to say something? Somebody?
No.
You were, I'm sorry.
Usually we ask that the trees, similar trees be replanted, not in the right of way, just a little bit further into the property, right? Right.
Yeah, I mean, we have plenty of room, and that's where we had our kind of reforestation effort.
Yeah.
But by pulling it back, we thought it was a little bit more appropriate, tucked in closer to where the array ended up. But, we could certainly, and again, I think that the bond and the language would allow for the board to certainly reevaluate it, and if we needed to fill in some holes, I think the mechanism is there to ensure that that happens, so.
Do one more thing?
One more thing.
Yeah.
The conifers that would be chosen would be natural to the site, is what.
Yeah, we would go.
So they would be different types of, different types of spruce, different types of pine, whether it's yellow, white, so that it creates some kind of a barrier, however you place them.
Yes, that's what I was, the tree warden initially said like kind, and those are the three that are definitely, close, are, I believe, deciduous in nature, and so, that's where, if we could work some language in that's really, as directed by the tree warden or the board, to allow a little bit of flexibility, so that if instead of planting a skinny oak or something like that, we throw in, like you're saying, a spruce or something that's going to provide year-round,
Yeah,
a little
because
more
once
robust.
once the little oak is taken away, there's more light where the conifers can grow.
Yes, yeah.
Madam
So,
Chair,
yes,
can I make a motion?
you can, except that we should do the findings of fact for the criteria for the scenic road bylaw. So A, the degree to which the proposed work would this is what we have to consider. The degree to which the proposed work would adversely affect the scenic and aesthetic values upon which the scenic road designations was originally based. So that's this whole conversation we're having. So as long as we have these conditions that Gary will propose soon, I think that we have satisfied that. B, the necessity for the proposed work in terms of public safety, welfare, or convenience. In this case, it's contemplated as part of the decision that we formulated in the discussion that we had before, but I'm satisfied there. Does anybody have, people should object if they have objections. C, compensatory action proposed such as replacement of trees or walls, we've talked about that. D, the availability of reasonable alternatives to the proposed work which would reduce or eliminate anticipated damage to trees or stone walls. So we mitigated for that in the decision. We tried to pick the best spot in the decision.
Yeah.
And then whether the proposed work would compromise or harm other environmental or historic values, and we have satisfied ourselves that way as well. And then F, consistency of the proposed work with previously adopted town plans and policies. So this is a little bit different because we asked you to move a road as part of another permit. But this is consistent with the ongoing effort, in my opinion. Now we're ready for a motion, Gary.
So I'll see if I can get this right, but move to accept the proposed scenic road modifications with, I guess, 4 specific criteria. 1 being to maintain the existing style of the stone wall. 2, to prioritize closing off the existing cart path. To close off the existing cart path. To rebuild any particularly low line or areas of the wall that need improvement, and then 3, to maintain one wall as much as possible. I didn't describe that very well, but
In keeping with the current character of the existing wall in the area. And then I would add that the interim tree warden is consulted on the tree replacement.
Correct.
And that the principal planner is consulted on the stone wall reclamation when that effort happens.
If I could add,
Yeah.
the photographs will be taken before and after and submitted to the principal planner.
Well, I would like to move the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay. Thank you, awesome. It's a little different, this particular look, so let's make it look great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great again.
No, it's gonna be
Build
great.
that
Take
wall.
care.
Thank you.
All
Look at
right.
those conifers.
All right, so we now will go back to our continued public hearing on Buckland Street and Leonard Street, stormwater management permit and petition to construct a paper street. Can we take like a 3-minute break? Just gonna take a 3-minute break while you set up. I'll take that. I know what I'm gonna do with my 3 minutes.
is Brandon traveling this week?
I guess we're still on live TV.
Sure, everybody.
Yeah, everybody wants to come by. What's that? Putting up the pictures.
Siding, trim, finished carpet, tile. Don't look at the rest of it.
You're pretty big guy.
There's no traffic light.
My kids are out.
That's true too.
I was gonna say something, I forget what it was.
Just keep it live. You're live. Yeah, you're live.
Last bike.
Let's go, man. Let's go. No, I was gonna ask you. Election. Are you running on a vote?
Running in the post.
Discussion.
For which
Are they
term?
done?
Nice. Stuck with you for a while.
So they'll be back.
Yeah.
Catch up the video.
They're,
What do you get, negative votes for himself?
Ghost votes.
Yeah, no,
I'll whisper away.
yeah.
stability's good.
Good. Good, good.
There's a 1-year term and 2 years.
Oh.
1 year.
With that.
Patrick Patterson.
So you're out of that vote, but you can vote on the other one if you want tonight's.
All the driveways.
Rob Benson.
Driveways being
Put, yeah, that's, I
The
put 6 of
major-
7, so that's the one that that you can vote on, but this one apparently you can't. But this one is, I'm trying to read my writing. This is 2/3 vote, this is, but anyway, the minutes will say
Sure,
if
sure, sure.
if I'm wrong. So we need you for the 2/3, but this one is just a simple vote. Majority.
That's what.
But they're also
definitive
waiting,
summary.
but they're also waiting for the election.
Thank you, Bill, I didn't pull that. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We can vote when
keep track.
the
Yes,
sectorial people.
there are so many.
That there might be a
We do
loophole.
And my
a review of
favorite, I
everything
don't even
from
think it's
the-
on here, is that you need permission from the homeowner.
Thank you.
Sure, that's
I didn't realize this was your mouse.
That's my favorite.
Driving it on the TV.
Sleeping
You're like,
point.
all right, good talking.
Okay, we're back. We're back.
Charger. Does it beep?
No,
We're all set?
but it's, has headlights.
Yep, okay.
The doors don't
Okay,
open either. It's
so,
kinda disappointing.
the continued public hearing on Buckland Street and Leonard Street, the stormwater management permit, and the petition to construct a paper street, Wall Street Development Corp. And let me just see where our decisions lie. I didn't remember to write that down, I'm sorry. So, first of all, are we all eligible to vote?
None,
Okay, awesome.
On the remotes.
or you think?
Okay. All right. Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to start off with the, go ahead.
Well, Lou Petrosi for Wall Street Development Corp. When we were last here, in our discussions, I think there were a couple of things that the board was, we were in the middle of discussing. The waivers were one of the primary discussion points, and then with the stormwater management permit, I think the only issue that we were really discussing was this pervious pavement that we had proposed in the first 150 feet of the proposed roadway. The board had some concerns regarding maintaining, and I think that our, what we've proposed is that the property, the roadway is going to be privately maintained by a homeowners association and not any kind of responsibility to the town going forward. So, I don't know which permit you want to discuss first, but
Let's do stormwater. Well, I think our outline combines them. Stormwater permit and the roadway petition. First of all, are there any outstanding issues from Beta?
regarding the
No.
stormwater, I think everything is,
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to make sure, unless you want to stay to the bitter end. So the outlines are combined. Is everybody comfortable with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so I have that we have gotten through, as part of the detailed discussion, the road design, 5B. And C is lot layout design. Anybody have any questions or concerns for lot layout design?
Just for clarification, Madam Chairman, is it it's for the 4 lots, correct?
there are 4 proposed lots, yes.
4 proposed lots. No questions? Okay. So we're going to check off C. Remind me, how long is the dead end?
I think it's,
I'm just saying, for the public, I know we walked by, we crossed that off, but I'm just,
no, I don't even know. Do you know, Phil, offhand? I think it's around 650 feet, maybe.
650 feet, okay. Public safety, we heard from, have you talked to the fire department about fire department access and solved that?
No, I haven't, not since the last meeting, but I will report that we did reach an agreement with the homeowner or the property owner at the end of Maple Street Extension to allow connection for emergency vehicles.
What address is that?
12 Maple Street Extension, I
12 Maple
believe.
Street Extension. So tell me exactly what the agreement is?
The agreement is to allow for emergency access. They prefer to have a gate, but not a locked gate, but just a gate to discourage any kind of through traffic. But it does provide for a connection between the two roadways.
And do we have that in writing, or we'll get that?
I have it in writing.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I can comment on that point.
Of course.
I think it's very encouraging that you're working with the neighbors, so.
Trying.
Okay, so we are on Public Safety D, Fire Department access. So we have the 12 Maple Street extension, you'll provide a copy of that agreement?
Well, I'm not sure. I'll have to check with them regarding the actual agreement, but I will put the elements of the agreement on the plan and submit it to the planning board to reinforce the agreement that we have.
Okay, and what about access on the other side?
Which other side? On the Pleasant Street, on the Pleasant Street side? I
That's
think
the
we
one.
provided a turning, at the last meeting, we've provided this truck turning plan that complies with the requirements for trucks coming in and out of, from Pleasant Street.
Okay, so.
I haven't heard any comment negative to what we've provided.
So just from me, 2 points, and I think that other people have points. It does require turning into both lanes of Pleasant Street, is that right?
I don't know anything about it, and all I know is what we do show.
That's the last that I know, is
We
that
do
it,
show a truck turning plan that we provided that was based on the dimensions that by the chief provided us, so
yeah.
I'm not quite sure where it's been left as far as that goes.
And in order to do that, you'd need to reconstruct a driveway that you need permission to do at 62 Pleasant Street?
We've proposed on our plan to construct a new driveway for the homeowner at their discretion.
Yeah.
We haven't had any communication with the homeowner because we're in, I guess you'd call us, we're in litigation. So they're not, there's been no dialogue one way or the other. But we've proposed it and haven't received any communication one way or the other.
Carol?
Well, it's my recollection that you have to turn into the property, you have to cross into the travel lane on Pleasant Street, and I didn't think that was allowed and that the radius needed to be changed to accomplish accessing the property without blocking the other road.
I don't know, I can't speak to that, but I would say that for the types of trucks that the fire department has, you have to turn into the other lane and almost off of every side street that's off of Pleasant Street. You know, I mean, the streets aren't wide enough to accommodate a 60-foot ladder truck. I mean, it's just not possible to do that.
This one comes after the new bylaw that says they have to, though. Go ahead, Fran.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a pretty important piece that probably needs to be clarified with the fire chief.
And on Chamberlain Street, just as a point of information, they had to actually take another piece of property to make the turning radius without going into the...
So is this a subdivision rule and regulation, or is it what?
I think it's a fire department
It's
regulation.
it's a public safety bylaw.
When we spoke with the fire chief, it wasn't brought up, so we haven't
I'm
discussed
quite
it.
confident that he'll be interested in resolving this piece of the conversation, for sure.
Absolutely, we have no problems with.
He's been pretty diligent about making sure that we know what we need to do.
The only thing I can say is that he did give us the schematics of his turning radiuses, and we've provided it, and I think it complies with what he was asking us to comply with.
For the Pleasant Street piece as well as, now, have you done it also for the
Both in
Maple
the
Street
driveways
extension?
and Pleasant Street, yeah. I can show it to you, do you want
For
to?
Maple Street extension as well?
Excuse me?
On the backside.
Maple Street extension as well?
No, I don't think that would, that won't comply with anything.
So,
I mean, the fire chief will want to, ensure that
If the purpose is for emergency access, then I think that they want to make sure that they have access to you.
The primary purpose, I think when Chief was here at the last meeting, the primary purpose of the connection is because Maple Street is currently a long dead-end street. And any kind of connection that we can give him to get to the back end of Maple Street Extension is better than the existing situation that is there today. We're not going to solve all the problems of emergency access, but you would be able to get emergency vehicles like an ambulance or trucks for police and other vehicles down there. So I think you can't solve the problem completely by making the connection, but you can certainly make it a better situation than what's there today.
So through the chair, I'll be very honest, and if it doesn't, if the chief is not satisfied with the ability to kind of have that as a secondary egress point, that's a big sticking point. Just FYI.
Like I said, we've submitted the information and haven't received any comment one way or the other.
Maybe at the next meeting, we can have the chief attend and kind of talk to that more in detail.
Or alternatively, just have something in writing from the chief that he.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Or alternatively, just have something in writing, that's,
Absolutely.
typically we've done in the past, we've done that earlier tonight where the chief is, where we've had some correspondence from the chief related to the review.
Okay.
okay, so that's an open point. Traffic impacts from the development. Anything?
There's 4 houses. It's not significant in terms of the, not going to have any impact on turning traffic volumes or what's existing on the roadway today. It's still going to operate at the same level of service that it's there today.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I just have one question.
Yep.
Phil, any issues with that from a Beta's perspective?
No, it's, 4 houses is not gonna have a significant impact.
Okay, so we can cross that one and we can check that one. Okay, stormwater management. Impact on abutters on Pleasant Street. For stormwater? Are we concerned about impacts?
I think there was a general concern with the people that abutted the property and the fact that there's a lot more stormwater seems to be in that area and it's running through and just, I think we need to take extra caution to make sure that the stormwater plan adequately addresses the stormwater and keeping it on the property. But if Phil's comfortable.
You don't have any, the Beta doesn't have any issues with that.
So, just to recap, the issue primarily is with the runoff coming across the lawn. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, sure. Yeah.
Do you have more?
No, that's the only sheet.
Okay, so this section is ramped up a little bit, so it's gonna cause a barrier.
I gotcha.
So we just made sure that the house is right here, right on the edge of the, we just want to make sure that they weren't going to get inundated with flow, so we asked for grading, so he's showing grading this direction on this side of the house and then away on the other side.
Okay.
I just thought that it'd be wise to have a condition that said the same, provided positive drainage for this lot particularly.
Which house is that?
I think that's 60.
62, right? 62.
Yeah, 62.
And it's not really 58, it's just 62, right, Phil? For the
Yeah.
most part.
60 and 62.
I think this is 62.
And is this where the design was contingent upon porous asphalt?
It's in that same area, yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I think last time we talked about, there were some concerns, and I think, Phil, you were gonna do some additional investigation on the maintenance and longevity of those, pervious paving materials, I believe. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that.
On the side.
So this is gonna be a private road, right?
Yes.
Right. So then, I think sand was one of the major concerns in the porous pavement.
So for porous pavement, there's less of a need for
Sandy.
salt and sand because the water gets into the pavement. And when it melts, it doesn't stay on top of the pavement, it goes into the, so it's less likely to refreeze. So that's one thing, good thing about porous pavement. Provided, and they have the requisite gravel section as well, so that it would wick away.
So through the chair, Phil, do you have any guidance on the lifespan of these? Because that was the other concern, was that over time, you know, whether it be from sand or debris or other things, that it would clog up and remove, and it would no longer have its.
Right, we don't see a huge traffic load on this. It's got four residences. It's not likely to have significant truckload. So that usually is the detriment to most pavements. And if it's constructed well, it should last, you know, typical to conventional pavement.
And then through the chair?
Yes.
Right, so the maintenance and the plowing of that would be all by the homeowners association?
That's correct.
Kind of manage that.
We did, at the initial stages, we did submit a homeowners association document. I don't know if the board has seen that, but we did at the beginning part of the
Very beginning of the whole
process.
process. Probably
Back in
buried
July.
in here somewhere.
Back in July.
Through the chair, when you're ready.
Yes.
Can I just get a little more clarity on the private road piece of this, and what are our options? Is it within our purview to require a public road versus a private road?
I would have to look into that.
Yeah, because I know we did have the vote that we did not recognize the right-of-way. So I was just wondering, does this fall under the normal subdivision of land rules that we have? I mean, I know we have a bullet point for G to discuss legal issues, but I didn't want to keep going on the assumption that this is going to be a private road. This would be a private road without
Is that under
some.
the waivers section? Or,
No, on the outline, we have legal issues, and the right to make the improvements is, we have determined that it was not a way in existence in 1953.
yeah.
You've already done that piece.
Does he have to request a waiver to make it a public road, or we just allow that sometimes?
I don't know.
Anyway, I guess I share some of Dave's concern that although when people build private roads, they say that the homeowners association will maintain it and do all the things, but sometimes the people get there and then 10 years later they wonder why the bus can't come down the street, or why they don't get trash pickup, or, and then we regret having allowed the private road.
Or, you know, keeping the road in good repair.
Right.
All those
Which we
things.
just had a recent incident
Snow
of.
removal,
They
yeah.
were trying to convince us to make the road public.
And with only 4 houses, I mean, I think
is
that's
very
a,
small,
I think
yeah.
that's a substantial question too. I mean, because it's expensive, I would assume, to maintain a road of that length.
And to the chair,
Yes.
just to John, that's one of the trickiest things we've had on the board in a long time. So we would not look down upon you if you brought the chief planner with you to one of our meetings to discuss that.
She's away this week, right?
She's away this week, and she gave me some decision outlines, which I think may cover some of that, but it is a complicated issue, so
Yeah.
I'll talk to her.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
really complicated. All right, so, yeah, I have no idea if we can mandate it be in a public way, right?
Yeah, me neither.
No idea.
Just-
Or whether that's really what we want to do either, you know.
Right, I'm
I
not
don't know
sure.
what
Yeah,
the,
because in the Osmond district, that there are a bunch of private roads in there, you know, so.
yeah.
But that's
a
maybe a
whole
different animal, right?
Special animal, yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, like,
yeah.
what's the difference between a paper road and a way of existence? Did we determine that last time?
We determined it was not a way in existence.
It was not a way of existence, but
What is a paper street?
I
what
think we
is a
highly,
paper street?
I
we highly
have,
frown upon both of those, because they're not clear, right?
I have notes to that,
Oh,
to-
great.
that address that, but not, I don't have them in front of me, and but I remember discussing it with our legal counsel, and I have notes to that question, but I don't have it all laid out here today, so.
Okay, so, let's see. The same requirements, and this is to Phil as well, would be addressing the impacts of stormwater on the abutters on the Maple Street extension. Is that right? So that the stormwater is maintained on site and no more stormwater comes off the site into their properties?
Correct.
So we don't have any open issues on that?
Or Leonard Street, or is that not on there?
Leonard Street is above, would it be, would it, I mean,
It's just
they
above.
can't go,
It's just very
it can't
wet.
go off. It is very wet, it's very wet out there. But it can't go on any abutting property. Additional water, stormwater flow, right.
So they provided so they provided an analysis of the existing conditions, and they've provided, after they've done their analysis for their proposed development, they've provided the swales and the infiltration basin to mitigate those flows. So that there's no increase in runoff.
Right, and that includes soil testing and compliance with the standards. I feel like the stormwater management piece is check.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, one of the comments that you'd made that's in our memo, porous pavement and subdrain connection to be reviewed and approved by DPW. Has that been done already, or is that pending?
So we always recommend that roads be constructed to town standards, because, you know, 10 years down the road, 20 years, 40 years down the road, you know, someone's gonna ask the town to accept the road,
So whether it's a private way, privately maintained road or a public road, it has to be designed to the public
So
standards.
that's what we recommend.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you know, as a private, you know, they can ask for whatever they want, and they can say it's gonna be private forever, but, so that's why I recommend that we have some input from DPW. You know, maybe there's a condition that says if the road's gonna be accepted by the town, then X, Y, Z needs to happen to mitigate whatever the porous pavement issue is.
If I may, through the chair?
Yes.
I think the chief was mentioning that one of the reasons that we do that is because, I think he's referring to another project though, is that the vehicles have to go on, and for emergency vehicles have to go on the road anyways. So instead of putting them at risk, they have to meet the town standards. And then the other side of it is, he also mentioned curbing could help stormwater as well, when he was talking about the Maple Street extension side of it. But that was a while ago.
Yeah, so we haven't reviewed that extension,
Right,
that
right.
connection to the extension. So, and I would review it in concert with the fire chief, because, it's, you know, you gotta get your vehicle to be able to maneuver it, there's a steep slope there, you know.
So, yes, accessibility by the emergency vehicles, but also stormwater management, does that change?
I don't think it's gonna be hugely significant. I mean, we can look at it, because this road is effectively cutting off anything that used to cross,
Yeah.
and it's being captured and infiltrated. And, I mean, it's not increasing the flow here, so even if there was a little bit of flow from the driveway, it's probably not, more than what's going there now.
Okay, all right. So I think, I guess I have a recommendation is that we hold that piece of the question for when we are prepared to vote on the road. The roadway petition, that there might be some minor,
Other issues are just obviously making sure that that stays clear during the winter, being plowed, and, you know, where's the snow gonna go from there, you know? There's a few other
Yeah.
issues that
yeah.
probably should be thought out.
So was my supposition correct enough that we could move forward with the stormwater, but as part of the roadway petition, we would be talking about those lingering issues, the snow removal, maybe additional stormwater mitigation if it happened?
Right.
So I have a question on that, Madam Chairman, especially, Phil, on the snow removal and drainage easement, right? Because you can't, if you're going down the street, you can't push it essentially on the right at all, because you're right up against that property line. So you've got to move all the snow. If you're going to move it, you're going to move it on the left into that drainage easement area, correct? Is that potentially a concern at all, especially in springtime with melt, or is it all just going to stay within that easement area and does it drain over to the basin? Right. You see what I'm saying?
Where would the snow go? Yeah.
Right.
So it'd probably end up down here, which is fairly close to this house. I don't know if they have a cellar or, you know, make sure.
Pushing it all the way down past Maple Street Extension is essentially.
Yeah, you'd have to get, you wouldn't want to put it here.
No, but you have a 10-foot pathway around the detention basin, we would push it in that direction. This, theoretically,
This is an issue.
in this location right here, in both directions, so that the snow would melt and it would melt into the basin.
Right, so basically, if snow gets pushed out to the left, it sits in the basin area, which is in the easement, and then it drains naturally subsurface.
Correct.
To the west, right? Because that's the way the topography lends itself.
That way, yeah.
Yeah, we'd probably want that to be in the BMP plan that shows where, you know, just so that in the future, it becomes an issue with the home.
Yes, Gary?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just a little concerned here, because I think, Phil, you had said earlier that there were no remaining issues with the stormwater, and then just in this discussion, it sounds like you're recommending a few other things that be added or taken into consideration. And I guess I'm just concerned that none of these issues were brought up in your review previously?
So we just learned about this extension
Okay.
and the potential for it. I don't know if it's approved or where it is right now. Right now, it's pretty basic.
Well, right now it doesn't exist, right? It's just- Right.
So,
Okay.
So I'm just gonna raise, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah,
I'll raise my concern around that drainage basin. If it gets chocked up with snow, I mean, is the confidence level there that it's gonna continue to go north, or is it gonna continue to go down? You could go to Maple Street Extension, those people that live kitty corner back there, they're potentially at risk because you got a high water table as it is.
We're gonna make things better for them regardless of snow, so.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
We're gonna make things better for those people up there.
Better.
Yes.
Better in what way? Just in terms of drainage?
It's gonna intercept some of the flow, and it's not gonna go there as fast or as much.
Do we know where they put the snow on Maple Street Extension now? Is it plowed by the town? Or-
It's, from what I understand, the town plows it all the way up to where Buckland Street intersects.
To that house, okay.
And so, when we talk about snow, we're taking snow that's already there and plowed into that section, we're gonna kind of redistribute it so that it's not concentrated in one location.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I have a question that I'm not sure where it belongs in the outline, but I have a question about these plans of where the intersection of Buckland and Pleasant meet.
Yep.
So I'm on page 222 of our package, and it's on page 2 of 9 of the plans that you sent in. You
Okay.
have them in front of you?
I don't have the plans with me now.
Which page
Okay,
first did you
so-
say?
It's 222.
It's
So I don't know-
basically your plan
Yeah,
is up there.
It's the, well, more or less. The thing is that it's up on the screen. There's a very, very dark line that shows kind of the outline of Buckland Street, and then, I believe, Pleasant Street. But then there is a slightly less dark line, which kind of curves up this way a little bit. And I'm not sure if Pleasant Street is going straight, or it's turning at the point of Buckland Street. Do you see?
Pleasant Street does turn about,
Pleasant Street does turn,
just slightly.
Right, but that line goes straight.
but this line goes straight. And I don't know I just don't understand it. There's also a utility pole shown in the middle of Buckland Street. Is that just the existing utility pole?
No, there seems to be, this line here appears to me to be the edge of the right-of-way, and this line in here is the existing pavement.
Okay. So what is the proposed street that you're building? Where is it going?
The proposed street that we're building is right here.
And
As we extend out into the right-of-way, we will be creating turning radiuses that are typical for intersecting streets. So it is a little bit confusing to look at. I understand. I'm looking at it for the first time too, but this looks to me like this is the edge of the right-of-way.
okay.
This is an area, perhaps Pleasant Street was relocated at one point, but this is the existing pavement that is Pleasant Street, and then this is
Okay.
right-of-way that the town has the ability to.
So your plan would be, you'll be building Buckland Street, if approved, out to Pleasant Street.
Correct. We'll be
So
matching the
even though,
pavement.
yeah, not, even though the right-of-way shows it kind of ending there sooner than Pleasant Street.
So those two lines
Okay.
must
Right.
extend, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, a follow-on question?
Yes.
So I did notice that in our bylaws that we say that all roads must intersect at roughly a 90-degree angle and that no intersection less than 60 degrees is allowed. So I would ask that they'll take a look at and see if that meets that requirement.
I don't think that particular regulation would apply to a pre-existing roadway, right, private way, as this.
We had that whole conversation and we're just, through the chair, we're just playing it both ways. If it does have to go through our zoning as a subdivision, then that would apply.
I don't think so, but.
I'm fairly certain I verified that.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. It looks close, so,
I think it's about 75.
okay, thanks. I should have known the question that. I'm just kidding. Good job, thank you.
I'll check it again.
All right. So in my mind, at least for stormwater management to close it out, we need to know about the extension of that road and the snow removal. And is there one waiver that's necessary for stormwater? There's a whole list of waivers. Yeah.
There were some conditions in there too that need to be added.
Yes, but I think that we can't necessarily close it out until we have the additional information, right? So we still have the ongoing list of conditions. What is section 8.4, I'm sorry, waiver from stormwater management?
I guess that was under your subdivision rules and regulations, and we applied for a stormwater management permit under your stormwater management bylaws. I guess I think they're both the same.
Do you know why you need a waiver?
I don't. It's been so long. So, I think at the beginning of the process, we had a little bit of concern about whether or not we could comply with, as a paper street, whether or not we could comply with all your stormwater regulations. But I think Beta has reviewed it, and we've managed to comply with everything.
So, Phil, I apologize if I don't know the answer to this, and I should. Are there waivers that are necessary for the stormwater management piece?
I don't believe there are.
So waiver number 8 says waiver from stormwater management, and I don't know what.
Well, if Phil doesn't think we need any waivers, we'll withdraw that waiver request.
I understand, but I just want to make sure that we know what we're
Oh,
talking
I
about.
understand.
See, it's, it doesn't appear that anybody does.
I don't remember how we did it, but we just.
I'm just saying.
So can I ask a stormwater question?
Hold on one second, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, no, I believe that's not necessary. That the-
Okay, all right,
They meet the standards as outlined in.
okay. And Dave, you had something?
Yeah, just along the road, the water, is the water going to drain down the road, or are there going to be any drains on that, or is it possible the waters could flow right out to Pleasant Street?
So the way it's designed is that the roadway has a reverse crown, which means it's going to be sloped to the property side.
Okay.
And then there's a series of swales and culverts that go underneath.
So you,
Right up to here.
so you're not concerned about the road drainage? Just wanted to be clear, thank you.
The only area we were concerned with.
So I understand that we have 6 minutes left until we adjourn here. If we can have the discussion to at least get the appetite of the board members, particularly those that are staying, but we're happy to hear from everybody, but about, the standards that we see ourselves maintaining for that road design.
May I just read one note?
You may.
From John's notes?
Yes.
And they talk about an 81 FF exclusion, but the town council agrees that this appears to apply for that, but there's two caveats.
I'm
So,
sorry, can you
page
tell me
10, page 10?
Thank you. Yep,
Page 10 of the memo.
Under the petition process, the second paragraph,
yep,
town council agrees.
yep.
So he said there are two important caveats. First, case law has clearly established that planning boards have the authority to review and impose conditions on construction of roads and
Yes.
utilities. So that's one point.
Yep.
And the second point being further down, exemption will be applicable only to the existing lot on Buckland Street.
Yep.
Not the other ones that are being subdivided.
So the way I
Yeah, so
interpret
how
that.
do we interpret that?
Is that we are looking at this as we would look at any roadway built for a subdivision.
Yes.
It does not matter, in my mind, and reading through all of the information that the town council has provided us in this memo as well as previous memos, is that from our purposes, this is a subdivision. It's only when it gets to the lot level that we're dealing with it as a different thing than a subdivision. So the road, the utilities, et cetera, are as if it were a subdivision.
And that's the way I understand it as well.
How about you, Amy?
Yes.
Me as well?
Yes.
And just to be clear, we're talking about the standards of the town for building a road, should be followed. I would say yes.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about, just so you have your direction.
Yeah, well, no, my understanding of the case law is that you, under 81FF, you can apply the regulations to the extent practical, given the existing right-of-way that we're talking about. For example, your regulations require a 50-foot right-of-way, let's say. Well, we only have a variable width 28 to 30 feet, so you can't.
So maybe there shouldn't be a
You
road
can't
there.
say to us, well, we want you to provide 50, because we're not required to do that. And so at each,
Do our subdivisions require 50?
To the applicant's point, I think that's right, that maybe we can't hold you to a 50-foot standard, but I think we can hold you to road construction
oh, absolutely,
of the same standard as we would put in a new subdevelopment.
to the maximum practical, or, you know, so you folks have your regulations, and we're going to meet those regulations to the extent that we have the ability to do that within the right-of-way that we're provided with. So,
Including burying utilities.
including the utilities, sidewalks, all of those things that are required, but as we've indicated, we've requested some waivers because of some of the limitations that we have within the right-of-way. So, I think what we've designed, in terms of your construction standards, we've designed a roadway that meets with all your design parameters in terms of gravel, depth, and all the things, pavement width, things that are within our ability to control, but we can't control the width of the roadway. The roadway is set. So we can't provide grass strips in a sidewalk and these things that normally would go in a wider, I don't know, what is it, a 50-foot right-of-way, or is it a 46? But anyways, anything beyond that, what we have, we can't provide.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So I'm going to call out that if you don't go back and take another look at some of these stuff, it's not going to go well, because you just heard from everybody around the room that we think this should meet the zoning standards. And if you're not willing to build sidewalks where there's plenty of room, you can't argue about the right-of-way. You own all the property. So beyond the first house, you can't argue about the right-of-way. You own the entire property.
Well,
you're not putting in curbing, you're not putting in underground utility. There's just a lot of exceptions that I don't feel.
We've requested waivers of the board. The board will take a vote, yes or no, on each waiver. And if the board says no to the waivers, then obviously we have to try and comply with the regulation. For example, on a sidewalk highlighted in red there, we have on the one end of the roadway, we have 4 feet or 4.5 feet between the edge of the pavement and the property line. On the other end, we have 3 feet between the edge of the pavement and the property line. So if your regulation calls for a 5-foot wide sidewalk or a 3-foot grass strip and a 5-foot grass, we don't have the ability to do that, is what I'm trying to explain to you.
And we're willing to work with you for
Okay.
those where you can't, but I think there's situations
I
where you
understood.
can. But the only point I was trying to make, and correct me if I'm wrong through the chair, but if any of these waivers are shot down, the whole application is shot down and you're gonna have to reapply.
No, I don't think that's how it works.
Well, we're at 10 o'clock. We are going to have to go through the waivers for sure. But I think that you understand that this planning board is pretty well established in their commitment to trying to do the right job for the town. And that means if you're going to build a road, that you're going to build it to the maximum extent possible in accordance with our existing bylaws. And if you can't, right, there's a point where you can't maybe, then it's not possible. So just so you know what's in front of you on the road design.
We understand completely, but keep in mind that all we did when we started this process was refer to a previous application that this board approved. And we simply copied the same waivers that were either granted or requested in the previous application. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel
A
here.
tiny bit more thoroughly than that. And, to make sure we know, when you come before us and there's an addition of an emergency access, just saying it so is not the same as putting detailed information in front of us on the Tuesday before the night of the hearing.
Agreed.
Okay. And when you tell us, when you've been in front of us forever, that you just haven't chatted with the fire chief about the emergency access, particularly when one of them is new to us, that doesn't fly either. I mean, we don't have enough information.
I understood that the information
Oh,
just
and-
became available to us within the last weekend. So it's not like it's new to us, too, so.
Okay,
So-
so I am, when is our next available time for a continuance on this?
Real quick question?
Yes.
Can he tell us what applicant he followed that doesn't meet these standards? What application he followed? You said you copied an existing application?
The Box Mill application,
Fox Mill, thank you.
right across, right adjacent property.
Thank you. And the only final point I would make
Yeah.
is, there's a difference between what you want to do and what you should do, so.
I understand. We're not trying to get away with a break here or there. This has been a late.
So you also understand that there's some additional work for the stormwater to make sure it's ready, that is going to include some design of your emergency access, right, and your snow removal.
Right, in terms of where it's going to be placed, where stone removal is going to be stockpiled, or I don't understand what the question would be.
All of the above.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
how about
I think
that?
a
Yes.
detailed plan in terms of where the snow is going to be placed, right? What's the impact of that, right? And maybe that's something you can work with Beta on. Because my concern, I'll be honest with you, that place is a swamp.
And
And more snow, and I'm sure you've got a plan to be able to make it all kind of go away to the north, or to the west, which is great, but I mean, we just got to be able to see that. That's all.
There's a lot more to the story here, so I don't want to get into it tonight, but if you want to continue the meeting, we'll continue the meeting.
Okay.
I was under the impression that if we complied with all of the comments that Bader had reviewed, the issues of snow piling, or that could be conditioned in any kind of a permit.
You have added an emergency access.
At the fire chief's request, yes.
Perfect.
But that,
We need to see that, right? And we need, and at the fire chief's request, and how does he feel about the emergency access you haven't quite designed yet?
And then you might not need the waiver for the dead-end street if
That's
it's got
right,
the emergency.
that's right.
exit.
Might help yourself.
okay.
Okay. When do we next have time?
So it looks like June 10th has now been filled
Pretty
up.
full.
The I-90, I-495 presentation, if it could get moved, there's a half an hour at 8:30.
We're gonna get that one done. Yeah.
So it looks like June 24th.
Dave has been more than patient.
Looks like June 24th is the next available hearing.
June 24th, and the decision would be then, talk to me about the holiday, how that impacts. So it's early July for the decision. I don't know where the 4th lands.
So, July 4th is the Thursday.
So if it,
After.
we could push the decision out to the 1st or 2nd, right? Monday or Tuesday, and that would be okay, right?
July 1st or 2nd?
Is that Monday or Tuesday?
Yes, so the first would be a week after the.
Yeah, so that works. That should work.
And if I may clarify through the chair, and that gives you enough time, I'm asking for a confirmation, that we'll see the designs with the new extension and reviewed by Beta and reviewed by the fire chief, and that documented for the meeting?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, because otherwise, we will be able to meet and we will not be able to make a decision again. So that's why I'm trying to confirm that.
I understand.
Okay.
So 6:24 at what time? Was it the 24th?
Yeah, the
Yep.
24th. Yeah, wide open, there's nothing on there.
So we'll put it at 7:30, and the decision to 7:1. And before we take the vote, we have comment from the audience.
Yeah, Peter Barberi, representing.
Just make sure you're up so folks at home can hear you.
A couple of the abutters. I think comments have been made from the viewpoint that the only obligation is to do the best we can. I don't think that's the standard, and I would ask that you ask council to do that. Certainly from the viewpoint of once you get into the Wall Street property, there's no reason why that right-of-way cannot extend to the property that they own and control. If it's an issue of the first section of Buckland, which is only limited to 30 feet, I agree, he can't go beyond 30 feet, he doesn't have any rights. Once he gets to his own property, he's got full right to make use of his land, so there's no reason he can't comply with sidewalks, underground utilities, the whole deal. So I would ask that you request that he provide a written justification. He had listed 11 waivers. Your consultant identified another 2. Within none of those waivers are the waivers that are necessary from the design standards from the typical roadway layout. So I would ask that they identify each one of those items, the berm, the grass strip, the whole deal, that they take that schedule, they compare it to their roadway layout, and you'll see, with the exception of the width of the pavement, they don't comply with any standard on the road, typical roadway layout. And I think they identified what they don't comply with and justified all those requests for the waiver. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have comments? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to June 24th at 7:30 PM, and the decision to July 1st. You're agreeable to the decision being extended? July 1st. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
All right. So, we are going to, keep the Wilson Street bioretention basin on the bottom of our list. And then the other items that we added, go ahead.
If I may, I think Bill is probably gonna be the one that presents the information about that, so we may wanna wait, if he's not gonna be here for 1 week.
When are you here, able to be here next?
The 24th again?
The 24th?
Where are we? When's the next meeting?
June 10th, you're not here.
Right.
June 24th, you are. All right, so, yeah, we should probably leave it there and put a little note, that it's gonna be on the 24th. And then we should, you know what, like we did with 495, if we don't just make it a time certain and set aside a half an hour, we're just gonna keep doing the same thing. Is that amenable to everybody here?
Yes.
Okay, so, so let's say 8:30 to 9 for that discussion, and make sure that Mr. McDowell can support that as well.
Did you want to move the meeting to 7 o'clock?
Yeah, let's make sure we're all
Start time? Because then you would have that first half hour, because the Buckland Leonard is.
Oh, if we are starting at 7, if we're all comfortable with that, we could do 7 to 7:30. Are we comfortable with sort of making that shift and starting at 7?
I'm against that.
You're against it. Are you able to do it?
Barely.
Will we,
All right,
question to the chair,
yeah.
if we make that change, will we be dismissing at 9:30, or? I mean, are we really moving up, or are we extending?
That's a fair question, I know, I agree.
Because it meant we would end earlier.
So, you know what, I really think that that's a discussion that's better undertaken by the new board when it's elected, to be honest.
Sounds fair.
So I would stick with the 8:30 to 9 for that.
For Wilson Street, yeah. For Wilson Street.
For Wilson Street, yeah.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
as Mr. DeYoung is stepping down, I'll be the old man of the board. So, it's tradition to thank him for working for the past 5 years. I remember I was quite excited when you told me you were running in Cornell's that night. And he's served very hard on this board. He served long and hard through 3 different chairs. And we don't always agree, but we always get along. And we've covered a lot of ground together here, Little League, Boy Scouts. So I thank you for your service. And I also thank Carol DeVoe, who I've known since 2008, when she was a liaison from the planning board to the Sustainable Green Committee. We were both founding members, and that was 11 years ago.
Oh, Lord.
And I thank you for coming back on the board at a very important time and helping us through a great deal this past year. And hopefully we'll see you both on future
Growth
editions.
study effort. Well, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? No, so, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Carol, do you have anything you wanna say?
No, it's been lovely, thank you.
What's this? So I had a couple things I wanna say. First and foremost, it has been my pleasure to serve on this board. A lot of thank yous go out. Phil, you've been here, I think, since the beginning.
Thank you.
John, gosh, it goes back even before Jen, Georgia, Elaine, Kobe, you've always been around as well. So thank you guys very much for the help and the effort that you guys do. To my fellow board members, boy, this group works really well together. Everybody, thank you very much. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. I've seen the board evolve. Frank, I think you could probably say the same. This is a board that is engaged, questions, looks for the truth, and looks to apply the rule of law where applicable. And I think that really comes from the leadership. And I will defer to you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for everything you do. It's been an honor to serve underneath you. Also your predecessors, John and Ken. So I'm sure to the 5 people that are watching at home now, thank you as well.
You're going to make me cry.
So with that, I'll turn it back over. But it's, again, been my pleasure, my honor to serve here. So good luck. And good luck to those running in 2 weeks' time.
Yes.
I wish all the candidates all the best. So.
Who's here now?
One of them is here now.
One of them's on the board.
You get props. You get props. And congratulations, Gary. I expect a good result. I know, you never know.
Waiting for you.
I would just, I have had the experience to serve on a lot of boards. And I've never had a better experience than being on this board as a member, as a chair. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you all know I've made a huge pitch for Carol. I recruited her, and it made a big difference to have somebody jump in with experience and somebody who is as thoughtful and measured and thorough as she is. And Fran has been the kind of second chair that is a co-chair. I have been so unbelievably well supported in ways that nobody knows, I'm sure. And I really appreciate it, and I hope whoever does this job next has that kind of support going forward, because it makes a huge difference.
One final request, Madam Chair.
Yes.
When we finally adjourn here, I would like a picture of all of us. We never do this on an annual basis, and it would be kind of cool just to have it so that when you think back on it in 5 or 10 years, you're like, Gary, who? So when we're done, Phil, I'd love to have you come in the picture as well.
Yeah, jump in.
You can take a picture.
I think we should put it in the town reports. They have some pictures of the selectmen in there.
We have it from the fall.
Oh, from the fall.
But we don't have a fill in it.
I want we get Phil, we get Kobe, and we get John.
And John.
Right? We'll do that. All right.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. All right.
Yeah.
Adjourn.
Picture.